Chapter 1349. Hearing this news, Song Qingshu was shocked and couldn't help thinking of that wrong night. The soul-stirring aftertaste suddenly made his heart beat violently. Alas, I was too impulsive at that time. Although it seemed a little shameless to say so after taking advantage of him, Song Qingshu did regret it. Although the first time was a beautiful misunderstanding, he was too much of a jerk later on. Although Song Qingshu had the factor of being possessed by the devil at that time, wasn't it also the most genuine impulse in his heart? Since practicing Mankasvara dhyana, Song Qingshu had encountered the situation of being possessed by the devil many times, especially that time in the Forbidden City, which almost made him lose himself and fall into the abyss of eternal damnation. Although it was thrilling every time he was possessed by the devil, he inevitably had doubts. After all, compared with the dangers encountered by the legendary predecessors of Tantric Buddhism, it was really not worth mentioning. Song Qingshu had been thinking about this problem for the past few years. Now that he had learned more and more martial arts, his skills were getting higher and higher, and his understanding of the essence of martial arts was getting deeper and deeper. In addition, he was in a high position, so his angle of view was different from ordinary people. Gradually, he really did figure out some clues. The reason why those who practiced the joyous dhyana were prone to qigong deviation was mainly due to the fact that they had dual cultivated with the same woman. After the first yin and yang union, the subsequent cultivation with that woman was almost useless. The cultivator had no choice but to find a new woman. But those who practiced Mankasvara dhyana were usually Buddhists who were congenitally deficient in pleasing women. It was difficult for ordinary women to fall in love with Buddhists. If it was an ordinary woman, it would be fine. After all, those who practiced Mankasvara dhyana were all brilliant and powerful in martial art. Although it was difficult to please a woman, it was not impossible. But Mankasvara dhyana had very high requirements for the furnace. It must be a woman with extremely rich pure yin qi in her body. But such women were all beautiful and blessed by the heavens. How could they fall in love with some monks? In desperation, those cultivators could only use force to force the women to submit, or directly use the attribute of joyful true qi to make the women's bodies yield. After tasting the sweetness, how could those cultivators still painstakingly pursue the women with sincerity? Just like taking drugs, once you took the first sip, you couldn't stop. Those cultivators had unknowingly embarked on the evil path, and those proud women were all famous figures in Jianghu or the imperial court. Similar incidents happening one after another would inevitably attract the attention of people with ulterior motives. Faced with the pursuit of the righteous path, the practitioners had no choice but to increase their strength as much as possible to protect themselves. But to increase their strength, they would inevitably need more talented women, which in turn would attract even more fierce pursuit. In this way they would fall into a vicious cycle. Because of living on the edge of life and death for a long time, people's character would become more and more extreme, more and more unscrupulous. In the end, they would forget their original intentions and be swallowed by their inner demons. But Song Qingshu was an exception. As if it was fate, all kinds of talented women appeared around him. They had gone through thick and thin together, and inevitably fell in love with each other. Because of his two lives, Song Qingshu was much more ambitious and knowledgeable than other practitioners. In addition, he would not be burdened by his identity as a lama, so the women around him were often voluntary. He did not need to force them at all, so he was lucky enough to jump out of the vicious cycle that the predecessors of Tantric Buddhism faced. But even so, Song Qingshu was still affected by the inner demons several times, which showed how terrible the inner demons would become once they fell into the vicious cycle. In fact, the emperor is the best candidate to practice Mankasvara dhyana. A thought suddenly came to Song Qingshu's mind. After all, the emperor had 3 palaces, 6 courtyards, and 72 concubines, so he did not have to face the vicious cycle. But Song Qingshu quickly denied this speculation. Although there were many concubines in the palace, it did not mean that there were many women who met the requirements. In particular, there were all kinds of fights in the harem for affection and jealousy. Even if there was a beautiful woman, it was very easy for her to be worn down to the point where all that was left was schemes and viciousness. He had been the emperor in the palace of the Qin kingdom for a period of time. At that time, in the entire palace, only Empress Xiaodong and a few others reached the standard of talented women. Even the emperor doesn't have this good fortune. How can I be qualified to be surrounded by talented women? Song Qingshu also secretly clicked his tongue. After thinking about it, it might be because these women were outstanding characters in the Golden Book, so they carried the luck of this world, which led to such a high success rate. Although he had avoided the biggest risk, the inner demons were still a hidden danger. All these years, Song Qingshu had been thinking of ways to deal with them in his spare time, but unfortunately, he did not come up with any good ideas. It was not that he did not want to stop practicing Mankasvara Dhyana. After all, he would die if he did not practice it when he was seriously injured. Now that his body had recovered, he still could not stop. However, he could not stop. Firstly, the joyous true qi was too powerful, and he could not bear to give it up. Secondly, the joyous true qi had the ability to devour. Previously, the divine illuminating true qi and 9-in true qi in his body had been fused with the joyous true qi. Although he had experimented with the method of creating virtual meridians and recreating the divine illuminating true qi and 9-in true qi, these virtual meridians were built on the basis of the joyous true qi. Now that he had so many people to protect, if he did not have the strength, he would experience the meaning of a miserable world. Not long ago, he practiced the equally magical Taishan Sutra. The internal force of the Taishan Sutra operated in a different way, unlike the meridians and acupoints that were known to the public. Therefore, it was not merged with the joyous genuine qi, which made it possible for him to stop practicing the joyous dhyana. However, as a man, the benefits of the joyous dhyana were too tempting. Until now, Song Qingshu still had not made up his mind. Young master, young master? Chen Yuliang wondered why he became like this when he heard of Huang Rong. Could it be that he also had ulterior motives towards Huang Rong? Chen Yuliang's voice roused Song Qingshu from his contemplation. Seeing the two people beside him looking at him strangely, he couldn't help blushing and hastily said, "If they come, then so be it. Why are you so flustered?" Chen Yuliang smiled bitterly and said, "Young master, I'm afraid you don't know the whole story." At that time, the beggar clan was divided into 3 parts. Although Shi Huolong became the new leader of the Jiangnan beggar clan, Huang Rong's prestige was too high. Many people still regarded her as the leader. When she comes to Lin and this time, it's inevitable that she will make a trip here. But Shi Huolong is dead, and the successor, Shi Hongshi, is… once she makes things difficult for me, my position in the gang will be in danger. Song Qingshu frowned and said, "Did you really kill Shi Hongshi?" Although he was now in a superior position, he was still not used to the means of disregarding human life. Of course not, that was too risky. Once it was exposed, I would be doomed eternally. Chen Yuliang hurriedly explained, "I only used means to force her to leave here, and then let my trusted subordinates secretly monitor her to prevent her from returning." Song Qingshu's face looked better and said, "You don't have to worry too much about Huang Rong. When the time comes you can't do anything, I will come forward to deal with her." "Then I'm relieved." Chen Yuliang was overjoyed, but in his heart, he was thinking that this guy really did have some relationship with Huang Rong. Song Qingshu secretly sighed in his heart and said, "Alas, I don't know after so long, does Ronger hate me or miss me?" But even with his narcissism, he understood that it was definitely the former. While the 3 of them were chatting, the beggar clan's disciples had already brought Wei Ruolin over. After seeing Song Qingshu, a trace of hatred flashed in his eyes, but it was quickly replaced by a deep fear. Song Qingshu was very satisfied with the look in his eyes. It seemed that his previous psychological attack had worked. Wei Rulan, how is your injury now? Who wants you to be hypocritical? Wei Rulan spat. At this time, he had already discovered that in addition to Song Qingshu and Chen Yuliang, there was also an extremely beautiful woman with a graceful figure in the room. If it was a normal day, he might have admired her, but unfortunately, his heart was dead now, and he withdrew his gaze after a glance. Song Qingshu coldly snorted and casually waved his hand. It was as if there was an invisible whip in the air that lashed at his body. With a crisp "pa" sound, Wei Rulan wailed and rolled a few times before stopping. "This is a lesson for you, you are not qualified to stand in front of me," Song Qingshu said lightly. Wei Rulan looked at him with hatred, but when she met his eyes, she could not help but feel a tremor in her soul, and hurriedly lowered her head. Chen Yuliang, who was watching from the side, was secretly shocked. This cultivation that could form a whip with a gentle wave of his hand was really amazing. After he had practiced the muscle-bone strengthening scripture, he had boasted that he was the top master in Jianghu, but now it seemed that in the entire Shaolin Temple, except for the one in the Sutras Pavilion, perhaps no one was his opponent. Chen Yuanyuan's focus was not on martial arts, but on the oppressive feeling that Song Qingshu's body exuded a moment ago, which made her somewhat pale. Before this, the impression that Song Qingshu gave her was that of a top expert whose name shook the world, a distinguished and elegant playboy. Although somewhat shameless, he could also be considered gentle. But now she remembered that the other was the god of death, who had destroyed 100,000 Qing troops, the devil who made countless children in Yanjing not dare to cry at night. Song Qingshu opened his mouth again. Wei Rulan, you should be glad that you have a good fiancé and a good sister. For their sake, I will let you go this time. You. Hearing his words, a deep sense of humiliation welled up in Wei Rulan's heart. After all, he had always thought that it was his fiancée who had sold her body to save his life, and now even his sister had not escaped from his evil clutches. Wait. Wei Rulan suddenly raised his head. You. How did you know that I have a sister? That was his biggest secret, after all, it was related to the family's mission of 100 years. How could he not panic? You have no secrets in front of me, Song Qingshu calmly said. I even know your family's mission. I've already made an agreement with your sister. I'll help you realize your family's wish, but in return, you have to become my subordinates. Nonsense, I don't believe it, Wei Rulan exclaimed. After 100 years of hiding from place to place, the people in their family had long developed a cautious character, so he subconsciously thought that the other party was bluffing. Moreover, their wish was to overthrow the Zhao and Song dynasties, and restore the great Zhou dynasty. At that time, he would be the emperor, so how could his sister agree to become someone else's subordinates? Song Qingshu sneered, stretched out his hand, and the water in the teapot beside him automatically flew into his palm. Then, he casually raised his hand, and a few thin pieces of ice instantly shot into Wei Rulan's body. Life and death talisman. Wei Rulan screamed in horror, then his body felt as if thousands of insects were biting his bones, and he could not help but struggle painfully on the ground, trying to use the friction of the ground to relieve the itch on his body. Chen Yuanyuan's hair stood on end as she watched. Today, she had witnessed Song Qingshu's methods at close range, and she suddenly doubted whether it was a wise choice for her to stay by the side of this devil-like man. However, his smile quickly froze on his face because the pain and itch on his body did not show any signs of relief. How is this possible? Wei Rulan poured a few more pills into her mouth. Unfortunately, it was still useless. I advise you not to waste your efforts, Song Qingshu said lightly. Your life and death talisman has been modified by me. Your antidote is naturally useless. It turned out that the nature of the life and death talisman was to use the yin and yang qi of a person. Since Song Qinshu was an expert in this field, he had mixed his joy true qi into the life and death talisman. It could be said that it was the life and death talisman zero version. Wei Ruolan's original version of the life and death talisman could not cure him. Although the life and death talisman zero version was more powerful, it had an obvious shortcoming. It did not have the antidote like the first version. Every time, he had to personally suppress the life and death talisman, so it was destined to be used only on a few key people. Wei Ruolan hurriedly struggled to crawl to Song Qingshu's leg. She pulled his trouser leg and said, "Please, I beg you, help me remove the life and death talisman." Song Qingshu chuckled. "Are you willing to recognize me as your master now?" "Yes, yes." Wei Ruolan's tears flowed down. Her usually proud head was now nodding like garlic. Only then did Song Qingshu quickly seal a few acupoints in her body. Then, Wei Ruolan felt that the feeling of being unable to live or die gradually faded away. Before she had time to feel happy, Song Qingshu said, "I only temporarily suppressed the life and death talisman in your body. If I continue to suppress it in half a year, it will relapse again. So you should know what to do during this period." Although Wei Ruolan also knew the way to remove the life and death talisman, Song Qingshu was not worried. After all, to remove the life and death talisman, one must know how much yin force and how much yang force were used in each acupoint. Only the person who used the life and death talisman knew this. Therefore, even if Wei Ruolan knew the way to remove it, she could not remove it. "Got it," Wei Ruolan said bitterly. "Actually, you don't have to be so discouraged," Song Qingshu replied. "I think you know how slim it is to realize your family's wish. But now that you have my help, your wish will be realized sooner or later. You can go back and ask your sister about the specific details. As the saying goes, show kindness and threaten together." He knew that being oppressive would not make their relationship last, so he had to give Wei Ruolan some benefit. "Really?" Wei Ruolan was stunned. He had been taught to oppose the Song dynasty and the Zhou dynasty since he was young. He thought that if he could really complete his family's mission, it would be worth it for him to suffer. "Are you suspecting me?" Song Qingshu's voice instantly turned cold. "I don't dare." Wei Ruolan was shocked and hurriedly bowed his head. He now had a deep fear of the person in front of him. "Very well, you can go back first. You have been missing for so long. Do you know how to tell the people around you?" Song Qingshu looked at him coldly. "I won't say anything." Wei Ruolan swallowed his saliva and bid farewell to him again. Then, he left as if he had been pardoned. Chen Yuanyuan hesitated for a moment as she watched him leave in a sorry state. Finally, she could not help but say, "Prince Song, don't you think it's a little too much for you to bully him like that?" Song Qingshu smiled slightly. "That's because you don't know how he had harmed me. If I had fallen into his hands, I'm afraid that my fate would have been even more miserable." "I see." Chen Yuanyuan patted her chest. "You look so scary just now. Then, do you like my usual appearance or my earlier appearance?" Song Qingshu could not help but tease her. "Of course it's my usual appearance." As soon as she opened her mouth, Chen Yuanyuan immediately realized the trap in his word. She could not help but pout coquettishly. "You're so annoying." However, she could not help but compare in her heart. His usual warm and sunny appearance also had a trace of roguish aura that made people feel safer. However, his demonic appearance just now seemed to have another kind of fatal attraction. Of course, Song Qingshu did not know that his unintentional behavior was in line with the style of a domineering CEO described in some female novels in his previous life. It caused a few strange ripples in the heart of a woman like Chen Yuanyuan, who had been cleansed of all prettiness. Worried that Chen Yuliang would not be able to hold on any longer, Song Qingshu said to Chen Yuanyuan, "Would Madame be willing to come with me to meet that Chief Huang? Although I have been cultivating in seclusion all these years, I have heard about Madame Gua. I have always admired her for being able to become famous all over the world as a woman and gain the admiration of all the men in the world. Although Chen Yuanyuan was smiling on the surface, she was feeling sorry for herself. In fact, wasn't she also famous all over the world? It was just that she was remembered only for her beauty, while Huang Rong was remembered for her chivalrous reputation. Hearing the words, Madame Guo, Song Qinshu, who was walking in front, sighed inwardly. Chen Yuliang, don't talk about other things anymore. Where is Chief Shi? In the meeting hall, Huang Rong was questioning him with her phoenix-like eyes. Chen Yuliang's expression changed slightly. He had no choice but to explain. Miss Shi believes that she is not capable enough to lead the gang, so she abdicated her position. Now, I am temporarily acting as the gang leader. Abdicate her position? Huang Rong sneered. The abolition of the gang leader is a big deal. How could she abdicate her position without a sound? I heard that this matter is only known by Elder Chen's small circle of people. Isn't it a little too strange? She did not address Chen Yuliang as gang leader, but still called him by his previous position. Obviously, she did not admit to this matter. Seeing her pressing closer, Chen Yuliang's heart was filled with hatred. It was not that he did not want to use force, but when he saw Guojing sitting in the distance, he could only give up the idea. Guojing's martial arts were matchless, and his 18 dragon-subduing palms was famous all over the world. Although he had learned the muscle-bone strengthening scripture, he was afraid that he might not be Guojing's match. If it was before, he might have tried. But not long ago, when he teamed up with his master, Cheng Kuan, they suffered a crushing defeat to Song Qinshu. It was a great blow to his self-confidence. He knew that there was always someone better than him in the universe. His confidence had been taken away so naturally, he did not dare to make a move. Moreover, Guojing and Huang Rong's prestige in the beggar clan was too high, so he could not use the beggar clan's power to deal with them. However, Chen Yuliang had never been the kind of person who relied on force. He was better at strategy and trick. Therefore, he calmly replied, "May I ask Chief Huang, when did the position of the beggar clan leader become a hereditary position?" Nonsense, of course not. Huang Rong had more or less guessed his plan, but she still had to answer this question. Each of our beggar clan leaders is a very capable person who can convince the masses. However, the successor must be appointed by the previous leader. Chen Yuliang laughed mischievously. "Chief Huang," he said, "by saying this, it seems that you are deliberately reversing the order. The previous leader should first appoint a successor, and then that successor should do some great things for the beggar clan. First, he can prove his ability, and second, he can convince the masses. But Miss Shi doesn't have the ability, so she can't convince the masses. Just because she is the daughter of the previous leader, she became the new leader. This matter does not conform to the beggar clan's rules." Huang Rong looked at him deeply. She had always heard that this person was a deep schemer and eloquent speaker. Now that she had seen him, he really did live up to his reputation. She knew that Shi Hongshi's succession to the position of gang leader was somewhat unjustifiable, so she decisively did not want to tangle with him over this matter. Instead, she immediately changed the topic to Chen Yuliang. "Elder Chen, since we're talking about gang leader Shi, then let's talk about how gang leader Shi was killed. Back then, you colluded with Cheng Kuan and killed gang leader Shi, yet you still dare to stay in the gang. You really have some guts. You really have a lot of guts." Chen Yuliang's expression changed greatly. This was indeed his weak point. Although these years he had eliminated dissidents, vigorously promoted his trusted subordinates, and managed to control the Jiangnan beggar clan, there were still many disciples who were dissatisfied with him at the bottom of the beggar clan. Now, if Huang Rong took the lead, the resistance that had been suppressed for a long time would erupt. Chapter 1351. When Song Qinshu arrived at the meeting hall, he saw Huang Rong pressuring Chen Yuliang step by step. After not seeing her for several months, she was still as beautiful as ever, as if time had not left any traces on her. She was still as beautiful as a young girl. Chen Yuan had heard of Huang Rong's name for a long time. This time, she had come with Song Qingshu, so she carefully sized up the other party. She saw a bright and charming young woman standing there gracefully. She didn't need to do anything, but she was already very charming. In particular, she seemed to have a unique temperament that was hard to describe. No matter how Chen Yuan thought about it, she could only understand that Huang Rong was always so calm and composed. She wasn't like Chen Yuan, who always had to guess the thoughts of the men around her in order to get what she wanted. Thinking of this, Chen Yuan looked at Huang Rong with eyes full of envy. While Chen Yuan was looking at Huang Rong was also looking at her. After the initial shock of seeing Song Qingshu, her attention was quickly attracted by the woman beside him. After all, as a famous femme fatale in history, even if she covered her face, it could not hide her dazzling brilliance. This bastard always has beautiful women by his side. He really is a greedy, shameless, and lustful man. Huang Rong's heart was filled with irritation. So it's brother Song. Guojing had been standing to the side watching his wife and Chen Yuliang talk, silently supporting him. Now that he saw Song Qingshu, he walked over with a face full of surprise. After all, in his heart, Song Qingshu had saved his life. Hero Guo. Song Qingshu felt ashamed in his heart. Suppressing his strange emotions, he greeted the other warmly as well. Seeing the two of them being so intimate, Huang Rong's eyebrows jumped. She opened her mouth, but in the end, she did not say anything. She only secretly sighed in her heart. After exchanging greetings with Guojing, Song Qingshu came to Huang Rong. Madame Guo, long time no see. Young Master Song is still as graceful as ever. Huang Rong's face did not reveal any flaws as she smiled and said, I heard that young Master Song was poisoned by the golden ripple flower earlier. I thought that young master had died. When others heard this, they would think that Huang Rong was concerned about him, but Song Qingshu knew that she probably meant the opposite. If I die, some people in this world will definitely be sad. Ignoring his meaningful gaze, Huang Rong smiled and said, That's true. If something really happened to you, I'm afraid all those women around you would be sad. Seeing that her smile was no different from usual, Song Qingshu sighed inwardly. It seemed that she had recovered from that incident. In fact, Song Qingshu had long been prepared for such an ending. Back in the Jin Kingdom, the reason why Huang Rong seemed to be at his mercy was mainly because what happened at that time was too shocking for her. Although she was usually resourceful, she was still a woman, and a married woman at that. This world placed great importance on a woman's chastity. If she had an affair after getting married, she would not be treated as a fickle woman like Pan Jinlian. In the beginning, that kind of thing happened in a daze. Huang Rong's heart was filled with regret and fear, causing her to be unable to use 20% of her usual intelligence. That was why she was led by the nose by Song Qingshu. After such a long time, she must have completely calmed down and would no longer be controlled by him. As the saying goes, good people don't live long, but scourges last for 1,000 years. I'm afraid that Yama is also worried that I will seduce his wife, so he doesn't dare to take me in. Song Qingshu deliberately emphasized the word wife, trying to see Huang Rong's reaction. God is watching. It's better for you to be careful with your words. Huang Rong obviously didn't want to talk about this with him, so she immediately returned to the topic. When I heard what you said just now, I have one thing that I don't understand. Chen Yuliang obviously rebelled and plotted to kill the former chief. Why did you say it was for the good of the beggar gang? When Chen Yuliang heard Huang Rong's public evaluation of him, a trace of deep hatred flashed in his eyes. He thought that if you didn't have Guojing to back you up, I would definitely catch you and torture you. Let's see if you can still be so arrogant. Seeing that Huang Rong didn't respond at all and instead questioned him in a businesslike tone, Song Qingshu was secretly disappointed. But he quickly got rid of the negative emotions and didn't answer directly. Instead, he asked, according to the beggar gang's thousands of years of system, Shi Hongshi being the new chief is actually very against the rules. Chief Huang has always been known as the female Zhuge Liang. Have you ever thought about how she became the new chief? Huang Rong frowned. At that time, Chief Shi was murdered and the beggar gang was in turmoil. Letting his daughter take charge of the situation, although somewhat against the beggar gang's succession system, was reasonable. Song Qingshu smiled. Madame Guo inadvertently overlooked an important factor. What did I overlook? Huang Rong thought it was strange. Back then, Song Qingshu had been ruined by Chen Yuliang. Logically speaking, the two of them should be like fire and water. Why did it feel like Song Qingshu was speaking up for him? If it were someone else, Huang Rong would know that the other person was speaking up for Chen Yuliang. She would definitely find an opportunity to interrupt the other person and control the rhythm of the conversation. But now it was Song Qingshu who was speaking up. She hesitated for a moment and decided to listen to what he had to say first. Madame has overlooked that the main reason why Shi Hongshi was able to become the chief was because he borrowed the power of one person. After Song Qingshu finished speaking, he secretly sighed. He didn't know if his words would offend her if they reached that person's ears, the yellow-robed woman. Huang Rong reacted quickly and immediately understood who he was talking about. She couldn't help but fall into deep thought. Yes. Song Qingshu nodded. Everyone in this world has a motive for their actions. Madam, what do you think the yellow-robed woman's motive is? Miss Yang helped when she saw injustice. Naturally, it was because of the justice in her heart. Huang Rong's own voice lowered as she spoke. Over the years, she had experienced the rise and fall of the gang and the cruel killing on the battlefield. She was no longer the innocent girl she used to be. Naturally, she knew that everyone had a motive for their actions. In this world, there were indeed people who did not have a motive for helping others, but that was usually a small matter. They would help others within their ability. If it involved a big matter, they would definitely think it over before taking action. And helping an orphan girl to become the chief of the beggar gang did not seem like a small matter that could be easily solved. Noticing Huang Rong's expression, Song Qingshu knew that she had also realized something was wrong. He had to sigh that it was convenient to communicate with smart people. The yellow-robed woman is not a wild crane. She belongs to the Imperial Court's Jianshan Academy. Song Qingshu was not in a hurry to reveal the answer. Instead, he let her think for herself because people would subconsciously believe what they deduced. So what? Huang Rong frowned. Does the Imperial Court want to control the beggar gang? But as soon as the words left her mouth, she denied this speculation. Although the beggar gang was known as the world's largest gang, it was like an ant in front of the country. The Imperial Court did not need to spend so much effort. Song Qingshu reminded her, the reason why Machi Wu was invited back as the Prime Minister was because the previous Prime Minister, Zhao Ryu, was brought down by Han Xingzhou. Zhao Ryu and Jianshan Academy have always been close. Because of this, Jianshan Academy suffered a terrible blow. If it was not for the help of one person, the Neo-Confucianism of the Academy would have been labeled as pseudoscience. Whose help? Huang Rong had been at the front line of Xiangyang for years. She knew a lot about Mongolia, but because she was far away from the capital, she did not know as much about the Imperial Court as Song Qingshu. Song Qingshu did not answer her directly. Instead, he said, whether it is Shi Huolong or Shi Hongshi, they both have the same surname. Guo Jing, who had been listening on the side, could not help but say, they are father and daughter. If it is not the same surname, then are they two? Seeing her husband's confused expression, Huang Rong smiled. After so many years, Brother Jing was still the same. A gentle smile appeared on her face. Brother Jing, Prince Song means that they both have the surname Shi. Afraid that her husband would not understand and make a fool of himself in front of outsiders, she added, the surname Shi of the remonstrant officer Shi Muan. Song Qinshu smiled. Madam is indeed smart. You guessed it so quickly. Huang Rong rolled her eyes at him. You have made it so obvious. If I still could not guess it, then I would be an idiot. Song Qinshu recalled Huang Rong's gentle gaze at Guojing. He sighed in his heart. It seems that to her, I am just a passerby. Chen Yuliang was also an intelligent person and reacted quickly after receiving the hint. He hastily said, not long ago, Shi Miyuan's daughter, Shi Shangyun, came running here in an attempt to seize back the gang leader position. At that time, she even said that Shi Huolong and Shi Hongshi were sent by her father. This matter was heard by many brothers in the gang. If Chief Huang doesn't believe me, you can find someone to ask. Hearing his resolute and decisive words, Huang Rong understood that there was no need for him to lie. She could not help but be shocked. Shi Miyuan has unknowingly taken control of the beggar clan. What is he trying to do? Song Qinshu continued. Elder Chen secretly discovered the Shi family's plot to encroach on the beggar clan. He did not want the beggar clan to become a victim in the political struggle. That's why he confronted Shi Huolong. For the sake of the beggar clan's reputation, he was also afraid of Shi Miyuan's revenge. So he did not reveal the truth. He would rather bear the infamy of rebelling against his superiors and be ridiculed by his peers in the Wulin world. Hearing this, Chen Yuliang's jaw dropped. He had always been an eloquent person, but he did not expect Song Qinshu to be even more eloquent than him. With just a few words, Song Qinshu had cleansed his stain and turned it into an act of loyalty and righteousness. Huang Rong also fiercely glared at Song Qinshu. With her intelligence, how could she not see that Song Qinshu was deliberately helping Chen Yuliang get out of this? But she also understood that although Chen Yuliang was shameless, he had prevented the beggar clan from falling into the hands of the politicians. At the same time, Huang Rong also knew that Chen Yuliang was despicable and shameless. She could not let the beggar clan fall into his hands. Because the previous plan to seize power had been disrupted by Song Qinshu, she was thinking about what to do next. Suddenly, Song Qinshu said, Hirogua, Chief Huang, we have not seen each other for a long time since we parted ways in the Jin Kingdom. Chapter 1352. Hearing Huang Rong's sudden exclamation, everyone in the room looked strange. Chen Yuanyuan looked at her and then looked at Song Qinshu thoughtfully. Chen Yuliang was curious. Why does it seem that Huang Rong is afraid of Song Qinshu? Did something happen between the two of them? Song Qinshu smiled bitterly. It seemed that he had left a big psychological shadow on her. Even now, she was still so resistant to him. Noticing the expressions of the people around her, Huang Rong's face turned red. She realized that her reaction was a little too extreme. Just as she was thinking about how to speak up to dissolve the awkwardness, Guojing, who was beside her, said, Rong brother Song saved our lives. You shouldn't have done this. Hearing her husband's rebuke, Huang Rong felt bitter in her heart. She thought that brother Jing didn't know the whole story. However, she didn't blame her husband at all. After all, she was very clear that her husband was a man of reason and not family. She fell in love with him because of his integrity. The main thing is that I'm very tired from the journey from Xiangyang to Linnan. When I arrived in Linnan, I didn't stop to go to the headquarters of the beggar gang. Now I feel a little tired. Huang Rong thought quickly and found all kinds of excuses. What's more, Prince Song saved our lives, but we haven't even prepared a gift. Brother Jing, I think we should visit him another day. Guojing hesitated for a while. He knew that what his wife said was reasonable. Moreover, his wife's physical condition now could not bear too much fatigue. Song Qinshu smiled and said, Master Huang, you don't have to be so surprised. What kind of friendship do we have? Why do we need to care about these empty gifts? Your visit to my house is the best gift. What's more, I'm afraid you haven't settled down yet. How can living in an inn be more comfortable than living at home? I don't have many things there, but there are more empty rooms. You can stay at my place. Before Huang Rong had time to refuse, Guojing laughed boldly and said, "Then I'll bother Brother Song." Huang Rong couldn't help but roll her eyes when she heard her husband agree so readily. Brother Jing was always so defenseless. You treated him like a brother, but he was always thinking about your wife. After hesitating for a moment, Huang Rong didn't say anything in the end. She rarely made her husband lose face in front of outsiders. Moreover, she suddenly recalled the first time she met her husband. At that time, Guojing had given everything to her without a care in the world and didn't guard against her at all. When she thought of this, she couldn't help but smile gently. Seeing that they had agreed, Song Qingshu was overjoyed. "It's getting late. Brother Guo, why don't you come back with me?" Since Guojing was so affectionate towards him, it would be strange if he still called him Hero Guo, Chief Huang. Guojing looked at Huang Rong inquiringly. After all, they were here for business. Huang Rong hesitated for a moment. Considering that Song Qingshu had dismissed her previous questions, she knew there was no point in staying here. Moreover, she had to go back and think about the relationship between Shi Miyuan and the beggar gang, so she nodded slightly. Song Qingshu was overjoyed. He quickly turned to Chen Yuliang and said, "Elder Chen, I'll have to trouble you with the matter before." Chen Yuliang nodded. "Young master, don't worry. I'll send them here today." After leaving the headquarters, Huang Rong casually asked, "May I know what young master wants Elder Chen to do?" Song Qingshu smiled and said, "Sister-in-law, my mansion is now full of spies sent by various forces. I always feel like I'm being watched by countless eyes all day, so I asked Elder Chen to help me find some maids and servants. The beggar gang is well informed, so this kind of thing will be twice the result with half the effort." Hearing him call her sister-in-law, Huang Rong secretly spat and thought, "Why didn't you think of me as your sister-in-law when we were in the Jin Kingdom?" She said, "Young master and Elder Chen seem to have a good relationship. No discord, no concord." Song Qingshu knew that she was testing their relationship, so he answered ambiguously, "Oh." Seeing that he was unwilling to answer, Huang Rong secretly gritted her teeth. Her eyes suddenly fell on the beautiful Chen Yuan, and she couldn't help but ask, "Young master, won't you introduce this sister to us?" Chen Yuan was shocked. Her identity was really special. Once it was revealed, not only would she be in danger, but it would also bring countless troubles to Song Qingshu. But seeing that they were familiar with each other, it would be rude not to tell them. Just as they were vexed, Song Qingshu said, "Look at my bad memory. I forgot to introduce her to you. She's a good friend of mine. Her surname is Xing and her name is Yuan. These two are Guojing and Huang Rong from Xiangyang City." "Greetings, Sister Xing." Huang Rong smiled sweetly, and Guojing also cupped his hands to greet her. Although Huang Rong was smiling, thousands of thoughts were running through her mind. She had never heard of the name Xing Yuan, but with her figure and appearance, she obviously shouldn't be such a nameless person. Could it be that she deliberately used a fake name? And with her hair in a bun, she was obviously married. She was with Song Qingshu. What was their relationship? Bah, this bastard always liked to seduce good women everywhere. "Greetings, Hero Guo, Chief Huang." Chen Yuan bowed slightly in return, but she was shocked. Her real name was not Yuan, but Yuan. As for Xing, it was her mother's surname. Before she knew that she was actually from the Chen family of Haining, she had always thought that Xing Yuan was her real name. Later on, a big reason why she had such a good relationship with Li Yuanji was because both of their names had the same Yuan character. Even Aku didn't know about this. How did he know? When she thought about how she no longer had any secrets in front of Song Qingshu, Chen Yuan felt as if she was naked. It was an extremely strange feeling. Just like that, The group chatted and soon returned to the residence. Huang Rong looked at it from afar and couldn't help but sigh. Young Master Song is truly favored by the emperor now. I'm afraid that only a regional prince or above has the right to live in such a magnificent residence. If Madam likes it, I can give it to you and your wife. Song Qinshu sighed inwardly. Huang Rong was talking so naturally, as if nothing had happened between the two of them. A gentleman doesn't take what others like, don't you think so, Brother Jing? Huang Rong lightly touched her husband. Guo Jing smiled honestly. Brother Song, if you're so polite, we wouldn't dare to disturb you. As the group of people teased each other, they suddenly noticed a beautiful girl dressed in red sitting at the door. However, there was a faint trace of distress between her brows. She had clearly noticed them, and immediately got up to walk over. Fu also likes to wear red. Huang Rong was slightly dazed. It was as if she could see the shadow of Guo Fu on the girl. Judging from her clothes and accessories, she could tell that the girl was a noble lady. Seeing the girl walk straight towards Song Qinshu, she couldn't help but secretly spit. No matter where this bastard goes, he always has a bunch of women around him. The one with the surname Song, you're finally back. The girl pointed at Song Qinshu with her hands on her hips, and said with a huff. Miss Shi, why didn't you go in and wait for me? Why did you have to stand outside in the wind and sun? Those servants are really outrageous. Song Qinshu coldly snorted. The girl in front of him was naturally Shi Shangyun. It has nothing to do with them. I just want to see you as soon as possible. As soon as Shi Shangyun said this, the expressions of the other two women beside her became extremely strange. Even Guo Jing, who had always been careless, secretly frowned. This brother Song was good in every way, but he was a bit too fickle. We haven't seen each other for a few days and Miss Shi already misses me so much? Even with the two women by his side, Song Qinshu still found it hard to change his nature of being a flirt. Pei, who misses you? Shi Shangyun spat with a red face. I came here to settle accounts with you. I've already told my father to remonstrate with you. Now that Yu Fei's case has been redressed, why haven't you let Brother Wei go? I let him go, Song Qinshu shrugged with a helpless expression. Nonsense. Shi Shangyun bit her lips. In the beginning, I was worried that I would give you an excuse if I came looking for you, so I purposely waited for 2 more days. However, Brother Wei still hasn't returned. You didn't keep your promise. Song Qinshu smiled bitterly. If I told you that I let him go not long ago, would you believe me? Of course not. How could there be such a coincidence? Shi Shangyun said angrily. In any case, I don't care. If I don't see Brother Wei come out safely today, I won't leave here. Song Qinshu was speechless. If it was a normal day, he would have teased her a bit. However, right now, he had 2 peerless beauties by his side. How could he have the heart to care about this young and inexperienced apple? If you don't believe me, you can ask them. These 2 are the world-famous Guo Jing and Huang Rong. Did I just come back from the beggar gang? Puzzled, Shi Shangyun shifted her gaze to the side. Guo Jing and Huang Rong's reputation was so great that she had naturally heard of them. Sensing her inquiring gaze, Guo Jing replied, Miss, I can testify that Brother Song has indeed just returned from the beggar clan's headquarters. Huang Rong, on the other hand, frowned. Jing Ji is not scheming at all. He doesn't have his guard up against other people, so he has rashly stepped into this muddy water. We only know that Song Qinshu is at the beggar clan's headquarters, but we don't know if he has the Wei Ji that the other party mentioned. After getting confirmation, Shi Shangyun's eyes flashed with joy. Good, I will temporarily use your surnames for once. After saying this, she could no longer restrain herself and happily left. It was obvious that she was going to find Wei Rulan. I have made a fool of myself in front of you. Song Qinshu ordered the maids to prepare food and wine as he apologized to Guo Jing and Huang Rong. No problem. Guo Jing was an open-minded person and naturally did not care about this matter. Huang Rong opened her mouth to ask, I heard you call her Miss Sure just now. What is her relationship with the Imperial Censor? As expected, I can't hide it from your eyes. Song Qinshu smiled. This Miss Sure is the daughter of the Imperial Censor. She is also the one that was mentioned at the beggar gang. Chapter 1353. Although Song Qinshu was not very satisfied with the servants in his house, they were very fast in preparing wine and food. It didn't take long for a table to be served. Song Qinshu invited Guojing and Huang Rong to sit down. Chen Yuanyuan was about to go back to her room, but he pulled her to sit next to him. It was inconvenient for Chen Yuanyuan to keep wearing a veil when they were about to eat. Fortunately, Song Qinshu drove the servants far away, so they didn't have to worry about being seen by others. When Chen Yuanyuan took off her veil, the whole room seemed to become brighter and more beautiful. Even a righteous person like Guo Jing was stunned. Huang Rong sighed and said, I thought sister must be a celestial being, but I still underestimated sister's beauty. Chen Yuanyuan blushed a little and replied, although I'm not a martial artist, I also know that Master Huang is known as the first beauty in the martial arts world. Hearing the two women flattering each other, Song Qinshu wisely didn't interrupt. Instead, he toasted Guo Jing and asked, Brother Guo, did you come to Lin for business or to relax? Both. Guo Jing smiled and said, not long ago, the imperial court and the Mongols stopped the war in Xiangyang. Rong and I finally had some time to rest. We were looking for a place to relax and make up for what we owe Rong all these years. Jia Shu sent us a secret message and asked us to come to Lin, so we came here. Huang Rong was speechless. She thought, why did Brother Jing tell the couple in such detail? He even told them that Jia Sherdao invited them to the capital. But she always knew that her husband was open-minded, and there was nothing he couldn't tell others, so she just let him be. Brother Guo and your wife have worked so hard for the country and the people all these years. You really should take this opportunity to have a good rest. Song Qinshu was thinking that Jia Sherdao didn't invite them to the capital for a business trip, and he didn't know why. Guo Jing raised his glass and said, last time when I was in the Jin Kingdom, I didn't have a chance to thank you for saving my life. Rong let's toast to you. Huang Rong cursed in her heart, I've already repaid him for saving my life, what's there to salute? Of course, there was no way for him to explain the reason. Helpless, he could only stand up and say, I'm not feeling well, so I'll drink tea instead of wine. I hope you don't mind. Song Qinshu was startled. Sister-in-law is not feeling well? Do you want me to get a doctor to take a look? Guo Jing smiled innocently. It's nothing, your sister-in-law is just… Huang Rong hurriedly pinched her husband and interrupted him. She said calmly, maybe he's tired from the long journey. He'll be fine after resting for a while. Guo Jing looked at her in surprise. Even though he had a simple and honest personality, that didn't mean he was stupid. His wife had her reasons for stopping him, and he wasn't stupid enough to say it out loud. Seeing Huang Rong's reaction, Song Qinshu naturally didn't want to get to the bottom of it. He drank up the wine in his glass and said, Brother Guo, you're being too polite. You've worked so hard to defend Xiangyang City. You've done so much for the country and the people. Any Chinese person would have helped you in that situation. Guo Jing sighed and said, that was a close shave. I heard from Rong afterward that you risked your life to save us. How could I not be grateful? Song Qinshu looked at her in surprise. He didn't expect Huang Rong to say something nice about him in front of her husband. Compared to the danger you and your wife encountered in Xiangyang City, my situation is nothing. Guo Jing laughed out loud. It seems that Brother Song also has a pure heart to save thousands of people from disaster. Now that the Golden Snake Battalion of the Great Song Empire is holding them back, the people of Great Song are really lucky. Looking at Guo Jing's forthright smile, Song Qinshu felt ashamed in his heart. The more upright Guo Jing's personality was, the more apologetic he felt for what he had done in the past. To cover up the abnormality in his expression, Song Qingshu took out a large bowl. It's too genteel to drink from a cup. That's what I was thinking. Guojing laughed. He grew up in Mongolia and had an amazing capacity for liquor. He was not used to drinking from a cup. Huang Rong hurriedly pulled her husband's sleeve and said, "Brother Jing, don't drink so much. I'm happy to meet Brother Song today. Rong don't try to persuade me." Guojing laughed. Song Qingshu raised his bowl to Huang Rong and said, "Madam, please help yourself. I'd like to have a good talk with Brother Guo." Huang Rong looked at him with burning eyes and asked, "Do you really think of him as a brother?" Song Qingshu was startled. He knew that she was secretly stabbing him. He couldn't help but smile bitterly and said, "Of course. I was frivolous when I was young and made a lot of mistakes. Now I regret it. That's why I especially want to learn from Brother Guo." Hearing his sincere tone, Huang Rong couldn't help but be startled. Her expression suddenly became complicated. The conversation between the two came out of nowhere, and Guo Jing was confused. Chen Yuan, on the other hand, looked at the two of them thoughtfully. Feeling their strange gazes, Huang Rong immediately smiled and cleverly changed the topic. "Since he is a brother, don't keep trying to persuade him to drink. It's not good for anyone if he gets hurt." Song Qingshu also took the opportunity to say, "Madam, please rest assured. With Hero Guo's capacity for liquor, only I will be drunk by him." Indeed, on the surface Song Qingshu looked like a distinguished and elegant young master, while Guojing was a burly Mongolian man with thick eyebrows and big eyes. No matter how one looked at it, their alcohol tolerance was not on the same level. Then Song Qingshu and Guojing drank bowl after bowl, while Chen Yuan and Huang Rong chatted happily. The atmosphere became more and more lively. "Brother Guo, I heard that you just arrived in Lin today. I'm afraid you haven't even found a place to stay. Why don't you stay here?" Song Qingshu took the opportunity to say when they clinked their bowls. Although Huang Rong was talking with Chen Yuan, she had been paying attention to their situation. She was worried that her husband would agree after drinking too much. She hurriedly said, "Thank you for your kindness. But we have other things to do. It's really inconvenient to disturb you here." Guojing was stunned. When he heard Song Qingshu's invitation, he was quite moved. Originally, he planned to take advantage of this time to have a good exchange with Song Qingshu. After all, Song Qingshu was an expert in war and martial arts. If they could live together for a period of time and discuss every day, they would definitely benefit a lot. However, since his wife had politely refused, it was naturally inconvenient for him to say anything. "Is that so?" Song Qingshu's disappointment flashed across his face. He knew very well that after what had happened before, it would be strange if Huang Rong would agree. "In that case, I won't force you. Come, Brother Guo, drink." After a while, Huang Rong suddenly frowned and said quickly, "Sorry, I have to go out for a while." After that, she covered her mouth and trotted out. "Madam, is it okay?" Song Qingshu looked at Guojing worriedly. Unexpectedly, Guojing, who had always loved his wife, smiled and waved his hand. "It's okay. Don't worry about her." Hearing him say this, Song Qingshu had to suppress the doubts in his heart. Huang Rong ran outside to the garden and leaned against the railing to retch for a while. Then she wiped the corner of her mouth with a tired face. When she was about to turn around, who knew that someone was standing behind her? She was so scared that she hurriedly took a few steps back. "Am I really that scary?" Song Qingshu smiled bitterly. Huang Rong did not answer him. Instead, she frowned and said, "Brother Song, why did you come out?" Song Qingshu sighed. "There are no outsiders here. Do we need to talk like this?" "You're right. Why do we need to talk like this? I have nothing to say between you and me." Huang Rong's expression became cold and directly walked towards the house. Song Qingshu subconsciously grabbed her hand. "Wait." Huang Rong's expression suddenly changed. "If you don't let go of me, I will call you Brother Jing." I have a few words to say to you. When you are done, I will let go. Song Qinshu was still holding her arm. The reason why I followed you out is that there are some things that are not convenient to say during the dinner. You don't agree to stay here. I am afraid that I will not find a chance to say it to you in the future. Huang Rong pulled a few times and found that it did not move. She blushed and whispered, "Just say it. Let go of me first. What if they see us?" Song Qinshu also knew that if the two of them were to be seen pulling each other, it would definitely cause a huge commotion. He hurriedly let go of his hand and said, "This time, I sincerely apologize for what happened in the Jin Kingdom." Previously in the Jin Kingdom, Song Qinshu was like a demon, exuding that kind of evil aura. Huang Rong did not expect that he would suddenly become so kind, and she could feel that his tone was extremely sincere. However, Huang Rong was not a 3-year-old child. How could she forgive him so easily? She replied coldly, "What happened in the Jin Kingdom? I don't remember." That's right. If an apology is useful, there is no need for constables in this world. Song Qinshu smiled bitterly. I know that you still hate me in your heart. No matter what I say, you will not forgive me. This time, I did not come here to ask for your forgiveness. I just want to tell you that I will not disturb your life as a husband and wife in the future. Please rest assured. I will always keep that matter in my heart as a secret and will not let a third person know. With that, he sighed and turned to leave. Hearing his words, Huang Rong's eyes became extremely complicated. Suddenly, there was a feeling of annoyance in her chest and abdomen. She could not help but lie on the railing and vomit again. Hearing the movement, Song Qinshu hurriedly turned around and was shocked to see her in pain. He hurriedly held her and asked, "What's wrong with you?" Huang Rong pushed him away and said, "I am fine. You don't need to worry about me." "How can you be fine? How many times have you vomited since just now?" Song Qinshu said anxiously, "No, I will call a doctor to help you. I said I am fine, so I am fine." Huang Rong could not help but feel a little angry. Perhaps because of the excitement, her cheeks were slightly red. After that, she pushed him away and planned to go back. Suddenly, Song Qinshu noticed her slightly bulging lower abdomen. His mind flashed, and he asked, "Are you pregnant?" Because she had been wearing loose clothes, and the extent of her lower abdomen was not very exaggerated, Song Qinshu had not noticed it before. A trace of red flashed across Huang Rong's neck. "So what?" Song Qinshu was suddenly surprised and happy. "Whose child is it?" Chapter 1354. Song Qinshu didn't know why he was so excited when his wife was pregnant. He trotted behind her in surprise. "How many months old is the baby? Is it serious? Do you like spicy food or sour food? People often say that sour children are spicy." Huang Rong listened to him with black lines on her forehead. She didn't pay attention to him, but she finally couldn't help but ask, "Are you done?" Song Qinshu was at a loss. "Who told you not to answer me?" Huang Rong replied coldly, "Why should I answer you? It's my and Jing Ji's child." Then she walked away without looking back. Song Qinshu was rendered speechless by her words. By the time he regained his senses, she had already disappeared from his sight. Although he knew that Huang Rong's words made sense, he couldn't help but let his imagination run wild. He had lived 2 lives and never had the experience of being a father. Now that he suddenly learned that he might have a child, how could he not be excited? How could he not lose his composure? Worried that others would see something wrong when he went back, Song Qinshu continued to stand in the same place. He took a few deep breaths before he could barely calm down. At this time, his brain could also think calmly. In terms of probability, his guess really didn't make sense. It was completely a whim. No matter how he looked at it, Huang Rong's pregnancy was a matter between the husband and wife. What did it have to do with him? With this thought, he finally completely calmed down, but his face inevitably showed a hint of disappointment. When he returned to the table, he found Guo Jing carefully supporting Huang Rong out. Song Qinshu couldn't help but be shocked. Brother Guo, sister-in-law, what are you doing? Guo Jing looked apologetic. Brother Song, Rong is not feeling well. I have to take her back to rest. Song Qinshu hurriedly said, since sister-in-law is not feeling well, then she can rest here. Someone, quickly prepare a room. At the same time, he secretly smiled bitterly. Was he so terrible that Huang Rong actually found such an excuse to avoid him? No need, Huang Rong hurriedly said. Brother Song, thank you for your kindness, but we have something to do tomorrow morning. We won't disturb you here. Jing Ji, let's go. Feeling the determination in her tone, Song Qinshu knew that he couldn't make her stay, so he had to bow and said, in that case, I won't force you. Since sister-in-law is not feeling well, I will arrange a carriage to take you. Thank you, Brother Song, Guo Jing said gratefully. The couple got on the carriage and thanked Song Qinshu. When they went far away, Guo Jing couldn't help but ask, Rong, why you didn't rest at Brother Song's house? Huang Rong smiled bitterly. How could she tell him the real reason? She had to find another reason. Jing Ji, have you forgotten our identities? She asked. Our identities? Guo Jing was confused. Huang Rong had to explain. We have been guarding Xiangyang for years and cooperated with LV Wendy. LV Wendy is Jia Shidao's trusted subordinate, so we have been marked by Jia Shidao in the eyes of the world. Song Qinshu is very close to Han Xingzhou. I heard that the house was given to him by Han Xingzhou. If we live at his house, what will Jia Shidao think of us? Guo Jing's brows furrowed as he heard this. I'm an upright person, and I have a clear conscience. I don't care what he thinks of me. Huang Rong shook her head. It is better to offend a gentleman than to offend a villain. Song Qinshu is a gentleman. She wanted to say that Song Qinshu was a gentleman, but thinking of what had happened in the Jin kingdom, she couldn't say it. She had to change her words saying, Song Qinshu is our friend. Even if we offend him, we won't take it to heart. But Jia Shidao is cunning and vicious. If we accidentally offend him, I am afraid we will be in big trouble. Guo Jing slapped the wall of the carriage and said angrily, I am guarding Xiangyang for the Han people, not for Jia Shidao. How can I be on his side? Huang Rong hurriedly said, Brother Jing, General Yu's mistake is not far away. Do you want to make the same mistake? Seeing that her husband was silent, Huang Rong continued, Brother Jing, the court has always been like this. Even if you don't think you are on Jia Shidao's side, Jia Shidao's political enemies will still see you as a thorn in their side. Instead of facing enemies on both sides, it is better to be under Jia Shidao's protection. After all, he is the privy envoy of the court. With his help, weapons, pay, and soldiers can be allocated in time. It will be much more convenient for us to guard Xiangyang. Guo Jing sighed, Rong you are right. For the people of Xiangyang City, I don't mind being wronged. Huang Rong smiled and said, Then when we go to the Jia mansion tomorrow, you have to control your stubbornness. Don't talk back to Jia Shidao. Don't worry. I know what I am doing. Guo Jing looked at his wife's beautiful face and couldn't help but sigh. Fortunately, Rong has been teaching me all these years. With a wife like this, what else can I ask for? Brother Jing, I am not as good as you think I am. Touching her bulging belly, Huang Rong couldn't help but sigh. The expression on her face was inexplicably complicated. Guo Jing didn't notice the difference in his wife's tone. In my heart, Rong is the best in the world. Meanwhile, Song Qinshu quietly stood at the door and looked into the distance. He didn't move his eyes until the carriage disappeared into the street. Suddenly, he heard Chen Yuanyuan's strange voice. She has gone far away. Song Qinshu came back to himself and couldn't help but smile awkwardly. What? You miss her? Chen Yuanyuan stood beside him and looked at him with a faint smile. Don't talk nonsense. Song Qinshu's face turned red. His relationship with Huang Rong had violated a taboo. If it was exposed, then no matter if it was Huang Rong or himself, both of them would lose their standing and be condemned by everyone. Thus, he was extremely cautious and did not dare to be careless in the slightest. Chen Yuanyuan shook her head. Young master, there is no need to deceive yourself. Just now, you and Chief Huang occasionally looked at each other. You can hide it from the careless and careless Hirogua, but you can't hide it from me, who is also a woman. Song Qingshu was shocked, but he immediately reacted. Although his behavior was a bit strange, how could a smart woman like Huang Rong leave anything that could be used against him in front of Chen Yuanyuan? She must have been tricking him. Thinking of this, Song Qingshu immediately relaxed. It would be good if we really had a relationship. Chief Huang is beautiful, and I don't have such good luck with women. Hearing his natural tone, it was Chen Yuanyuan's turn to be surprised. She was really just testing him. A woman's sixth sense told her that there must be something between the two of them. Coupled with the taboo of their identities, it made the fire of gossip burn in her heart. In fact, she also knew that it was not a good idea to expose this kind of thing. Originally, she had already resisted the urge to ask, but when she saw the usually carefree Song Qingshu standing at the door like a stone looking at his wife, she didn't know where the impulse came from, but she directly blurted it out. Song Qingshu understood the principle of being defensive for a long time and knew that if he let her continue asking, it would be hard to guarantee that he wouldn't give himself away. Therefore, he grabbed her wrist and walked into the mansion. Come, drink with me. Hey, let go you. Feeling the warmth of the man's palm, Chen Yuanyuan couldn't help but feel embarrassed. She kept hitting him, trying to pull her hand out, but unfortunately, it didn't move at all. Pulling Chen Yuanyuan back to the table and sitting down, Song Qingshu finally let go of her hand. As he poured wine, he smiled and said, "Madam's hand is quite slippery." In order to divert her attention, Song Qingshu returned to his previous frivolous personality. Chen Yuanyuan's face turned cold. "Gongzi, please conduct yourself." Song Qingshu smiled slightly. "We are all friends, there is no need to be so polite. Come, let's drink together." Hearing that they were friends, Chen Yuanyuan's expression became better. "I have been cultivating these years and don't drink." Song Qingshu didn't care so much. He took a glass of wine and stuffed it into her hand. "What does it matter if you are cultivating?" In the early years, there was a senior monk who said, "Wine and meat pass through the intestines, but Buddha sits in the heart. As long as your heart is firm, why should you be constrained by those external forms?" Chen Yuanyuan looked at him in surprise. Which senior monk would say such absurd words? Divine Monk Daoji of Lingyin Temple. Song Qingshu smiled and said, "That's why I said he is a senior monk, and you are just cultivating. But I really can't drink." Chen Yuanyuan still refused. Song Qingshu sighed. "I'm feeling a little down, and I really want to drown my sorrows in alcohol. However, it's too boring to drink alone. Madam, as my only friend, can't you accompany me?" Chen Yuanyuan hesitated for a while and finally nodded. "Okay, but I can only drink a little." Song Qingshu couldn't help laughing. "Madam, you were the top of the 8 beauties of Qinhuai. How can you only drink a little?" In the future, the women in the nightclubs all had a capacity for drinking 1,000 cups without getting drunk. This kind of thing was passed down from the same origin, and now it was certainly not much different. Chen Yuanyuan's expression changed. She picked up the cup and drank it in one gulp. She laughed at herself and said, "You are right. Who doesn't know how to drink?" Song Qingshu finally reacted. He couldn't help but look apologetic. "I didn't mean it." Chen Yuanyuan chuckled and poured another cup of wine. "I know you didn't mean it. I am just more sensitive about it. Forget it. Just watch me drink." Song Qingshu hurriedly took the cup from her hand and drank it in one gulp. Seeing him put the cup that she had just drunk into his mouth, Chen Yuanyuan's face blushed slightly. "It doesn't matter." Just take it as me thanking you for saving my life. Song Qinshu suddenly looked disappointed. People say that saving a life should be repaid with your body. Madam, drinking a few cups of wine with me is enough to repay me? Chapter 1355. Looking at Chen Yuanyuan's gem-like eyes, Song Qinshu couldn't help but feel his heart skip a beat. He couldn't help but ask, why am I an exception? Chen Yuanyuan looked into the distance, and a trace of reminiscence appeared on her face. In the past, I was forced to drink with others, but this time I was willing. Don't you think this is an exception? Of course it is. Song Qinshu smiled. It even makes me feel flattered. Chen Yuanyuan smiled sweetly. Since you are flattered, do you have anything to say? What does Madam want me to say? Song Qinshu asked curiously. Chen Yuanyuan raised the wine glass in front of her. A trace of slyness flashed in her eyes. Gongzi is a great hero who is famous in the world. I am just a weak woman who can't drink. If you drink one glass and I drink one glass, isn't it too unfair? Looking at her sly and quick-witted eyes, Song Qinshu remembered that the woman in front of him used to be the most beautiful woman in Qinhuai. She was a femme fatale who charmed countless men. He couldn't help but smile. Does Madam want me to agree to drink one glass and I drink one glass? Chen Yuanyuan sighed faintly. Judging from Gongzi's tone, you are obviously unwilling. Song Qinshu shook his head. If you didn't say it, I would have taken the initiative. But since you said it, I am not willing to drink like that. Chen Yuanyuan asked curiously, why? Song Qinshu filled his own glass and replied, I treat Madam as a friend. Why does Madam want to use the methods that you used to deal with others to deal with me? It's full of tricks. Chen Yuanyuan was startled. Then she smiled. Sure enough, not having used it for many years has caused me to regress. I actually forgot that what men care most about is a woman's different attitude towards him. Song Qinshu clinked his glass with hers and drank it in one gulp. Just now, Madam successfully made me feel that feeling of being different. Unfortunately, I later realized that it was just a trick. Chen Yuanyuan chuckled. Gongzi deliberately said that you were wronged. Isn't it also a trick? Song Qinshu smiled calmly. Just some words from the bottom of my heart. Okay. I'm scared of you, Chen Yuanyuan said coquettishly. One for you, one for me. Is that okay? Unexpectedly, Song Qinshu shook his head in a serious manner. Madam should punish herself with 3 cups of wine to show her sincerity. Chen Yuanyuan's cheeks were flushed and her eyes were sparkling. She looked at him with a faint smile. When I was in Qinhuai River, I also met a lot of people like you. They tried all kinds of ways to persuade me to drink more. Do you have the same idea as those men? Previously, when he saw Chen Yuanyuan, she had always been clean and focused on her cultivation. It could be said that they were at the level of femme fatale. Unfortunately, as they grew older, they were no longer beautiful. Now, although Chen Yuanyuan was still stunning, it was obvious that she had reached the end of her peak. In another 10 years, no, maybe in another 5 years, her beauty would greatly decline. Song Qinshu's heart ached when he thought of the scene of a beauty past her prime. Beautiful things were gifts from the heavens, works of art in the human world. It was too cruel to watch such works of art being destroyed before his eyes. In his previous life, Song Qinshu could only watch helplessly as the 2 great beauties Li and Guan Jilin lost to time. But in this world, he suddenly realized that he was not helpless. Madam, do you want to maintain your beauty and youth forever? Song Qinshu suddenly raised his head and looked at her with a burning gaze. Who knew that Chen Yuanyuan didn't have the slightest bit of excitement? She only smiled lightly. Eternal beauty and youth only exist in legends. Why does young master even believe in this? Song Qinshu shook his head. Immortality is indeed impossible, but eternal youth is not necessarily. Chen Yuanyuan smiled faintly. I've been studying Buddhist scriptures these years, and I've also understood the principle of beauty. I've also become less concerned about my appearance. Moreover, all my misfortunes in this life are caused by this appearance. It may not be a bad thing for me to grow old and lose my beauty in the future. Is that so? Song Qingshu looked at her strangely. Madam, why do you have to say one thing and mean another? The reason why you are so indifferent is because you know that you can't maintain your youth forever. That's why you are deliberately comforting yourself. Before Chen Yuanyuan could refute, Song Qingshu continued to ask, Madam, have you heard of Misty Peak's Spirit Vulture Palace's Heavenly Mountain Tonglao? Heavenly Mountain Tonglao? Chen Yuanyuan shook her head blankly. This name is so strange. This Heavenly Mountain Tonglao is over 90 years old. Song Qingshu smiled. Madam, do you know why she is called Tonglao? Seeing that he was deliberately showing off, Chen Yuanyuan softly said, Young master, don't keep me in suspense. Seeing that she was acting like a spoiled little girl, Song Qingshu's bones softened. He hurriedly replied, The reason why she has this nickname is because although she is over 90 years old, her appearance is similar to that of a teenage girl. That's why she is called Tonglao. How is that possible? Chen Yuanyuan's red lips were slightly agape. Her face was full of disbelief. Indeed, in the mind of a normal person, how could a 90-year-old woman look like a teenager? That's the truth. Song Qingshu shrugged. Heavenly Mountain Tonglao practiced a miraculous technique. It's extremely powerful, and it can slow down the speed of the practitioner's aging. At the same time, it can rejuvenate once every 30 years. Rejuvenate? Chen Yuanyuan covered her mouth. Clearly, this sounded like a fantasy to her. This is actually a side effect of this technique. It's similar to qi deviation. However, in my opinion, this side effect is much more meaningful than the martial arts itself. Song Qingshu could not help but think of the words legal lowly. That's right. If this is true, then all the women in the world would probably go crazy for it. Chen Yuanyuan nodded subconsciously. If she knew the indescribable thoughts in his mind, she would probably not agree so much. Of course it's true. I also know that technique, Song Qingshu said proudly. Although she knew, Chen Yuanyuan subconsciously distanced herself from him. With a strange expression she asked, You're also over 90 years old? Song Qingshu almost fell down. He replied angrily, More than that. I'm already 100 years old. Little girl, be good. Quickly call me uncle. Chen Yuanyuan's heart skipped a beat at his strange tone. It was as if there was really an old pervert standing in front of her seducing her. She could not help but blush and spit. Bah, you're so impolite. At this point, how could she not know that he was deliberately teasing her? That divine technique is called the eternal youth art. Song Qingshu paused and looked at her with a burning gaze. Madam, do you want to learn it? Chen Yuanyuan's heart skipped a beat. Although she wanted to say no, when she heard the words eternal youth, her heartbeat sped up. After all, no woman could resist the temptation of eternal youth. After hesitating several times, she finally squeezed out a word in a low voice. Yes. After saying that, her face flushed with embarrassment. Just a moment ago, she was still speaking righteously about the pink skeleton. She did not expect that she would be exposed so quickly. Song Qingshu said hesitantly, But there's a very important problem. This martial art is too profound. Even an expert of Nan Murong's level doesn't have the qualifications to practice it. Forcefully practicing it will only lead to qi deviation and severed meridians. The excitement on Chen Yuanyuan's face instantly disappeared and was replaced by endless disappointment. Then, doesn't that mean I can't practice it at all? She did not know any martial arts at all. She was not a martial arts genius. If she started learning martial arts at this age, she would probably never reach Nan Murong's realm in her entire life. Moreover, Nan Murong did not have the qualifications to practice it. Madam, don't be discouraged. Song Qingshu comforted her. In fact, the most important condition is a deep inner force. I have a method to quickly increase your power. Chapter 1356. What is it? Although Chen Yuanyuan vaguely felt that Song Qingshu's eyes were a little strange, she still couldn't resist the temptation of eternal youth and asked. The red light in Song Qingshu's eyes became even more intense. As he drank, he revealed a devilish smile. There are only 3 ways for a person who has never learned martial arts to obtain deep inner energy in a short period of time. The first way is to take a natural treasure, which can often add decades of inner strength. However, natural treasures are too rare, and only a few people in Jianghu have seen them. In addition, natural treasures are most effective for people who practice martial arts. People like you, who don't even have meridians blocked, won't be able to absorb the medicinal power in it. Most of it will be wasted. The second way is to use the northern underworld divine skill of the Xiaoyao sect or the star-sucking skill of the Sun Moon sect. It can absorb other people's inner strength for your own use. Unfortunately, these 2 methods are too harmful. No one wants their hard-earned inner strength to be absorbed by others. Therefore, these 2 methods are regarded as evil by people in Jianghu. Those who practice it will easily become the public enemy of Jianghu. The third way is to find a martial arts master and let him willingly impart his inner strength to you. After imparting his inner strength, that master will often exhaust his essence and blood and die soon. Who in the world is willing to sacrifice themselves like this? After listening to Song Qingshu's explanation, Chen Yuanyuan looked disappointed. It seems that I have no hope in this life. Not necessarily. Song Qingshu smiled slightly. Chen Yuanyuan looked at him in confusion. Song Qingshu then continued, the martial arts I practice are very magical. I can impart my inner strength to a woman when I'm intimate with her. At the same time, I don't suffer as much loss as other kinds of inner strength imparting. Are you interested in trying it, madam? Chen Yuanyuan was stunned at first, thinking that she had misheard. However, when she saw the evil look in Song Qingshu's eyes, she finally understood that she had not misheard. Her face was so red that it seemed like blood was about to seep out. She said coldly, "Young master, please behave yourself." After saying that, she got up and walked out. Who knew that Song Qingshu would grab her wrist and pull her into his arms? "Let me go." Chen Yuanyuan struggled to get up, but it was a pity that other than bringing a burst of pleasure to the other party's body, there was no other effect. "Madam, why are you in such a hurry to leave? We haven't finished drinking yet." Song Qingshu pinched her chin with his fingers, took a glass of wine, and moved it to her rosy lips. Chen Yuanyuan was embarrassed and angry at the same time. She had not expected the other party to suddenly become like this. Just as she was about to scold him, she raised her head and met a pair of demonic eyes. A trace of confusion suddenly flashed in her eyes. "Does madam really not want to stay young forever?" Song Qingshu's voice seemed to be near and far at the same time, so illusory and unfathomable. Yes, although Chen Yuanyuan felt that something was wrong, she still answered mechanically. "Does madam hate me?" Song Qingshu lowered his head and asked in her ear. A blush appeared on Chen Yuanyuan's neck, and she subconsciously shook her head. "I don't hate it. Since you don't hate me, and I can let you stay young forever, why do you reject me?" Song Qingshu's fingers slid across her face. He felt that the tender feeling on his fingertips was truly soul-stirring. Chen Yuanyuan's body also trembled, and she murmured, "I don't know." Before she could finish, Song Qingshu had already kissed her, forcing the rest of her words back into her mouth. Wu Chen Yuanyuan's body stiffened. She was just about to reach out and push him away, but her mind was a mess. Her outstretched hand instead hugged his shoulder, and her whole body gradually softened. Hugging her hot and alluring body, Song Qingshu also felt that his body was getting hotter and hotter. Especially when he thought of her identity that could turn all living things upside down, his heart was incomparably excited. He couldn't help but feel his breathing quicken as he explored her body. After an unknown amount of time, light footsteps came from outside the door. A maidservant stuck her head out to look around. Song Qinshu suddenly looked up and said coldly, "Didn't I say that no one is allowed to disturb this place? This servant is just here to ask if there is anything else you need here." The maidservant's eyes flashed as she replied timidly, "Nothing. Without my order, no one is allowed to take a step near this garden." With that, Song Qinshu waved his hand and the two doors closed with a bang. The maidservant also felt her body being carried by an invisible force. When she recovered from her shock, she found that she was already several feet away. "I wonder which side's spy she is." Song Qinshu frowned and thought. If that bastard Chen Yuliang still didn't send her over, he would have a good time. After this small interlude, Song Qinshu regained some of his rationality. Suddenly, he heard a moan coming from his arms. Looking down, he saw Chen Yuanyuan looking at him with a pair of wide, watery eyes. Her previously dignified clothes were now completely disheveled, faintly revealing the snow-white cleavage of her chest. What made Song Qinshu's pupils contract even more was that his hand was currently in her lapel. That warm and soft touch in his palm didn't need to think to know what he was pinching. What's going on? Song Qinshu was stunned. It took him a long time to sort out the whole thing. He couldn't help but curse in his heart. Before, they were still talking about the problem of the heart demon. He didn't expect it to appear again at this time. Maybe it was because Huang Rong's pregnancy had shocked him too much, or maybe it was because Chen Yuanyuan was too beautiful, or maybe it was some other reason that caused a flaw to appear in Song Qinshu's heart. The heart demon that had been lurking for a long time naturally wouldn't let go of such a great opportunity. In an instant, it used its desire to destroy his rationality. Fortunately, during this period of time, his cultivation was getting higher and he had a deeper understanding of the side effects of the blissful Diana. So, when the maidservant interrupted him, he woke up. If it was in the past, he would probably have to wait until he completely vented his desire before he could wake up. But if he did that, the heart demon would unknowingly grow a little stronger. Why is it that I'm becoming more and more like the evil King Shizhishuan? Song Qinshu was having a headache. He didn't want to become that psychopath with schizophrenia. Qinshu. At this time, Chen Yuanyuan suddenly let out a sweet voice, which made Song Qinshu's body swell up a little again. Looking at her curled up in his arms like a cat in heat, with her mesmerizing body vaguely visible under her messy dress, Song Qinshu recalled that he seemed to have used the soul transfer spell on her just now. At this moment, Chen Yuanyuan could be said to be obedient and let him do whatever he wanted. Chen Yuanyuan seemed to be a little uncomfortable, twisting around in his arms. Although there were only 2 layers of clothes between them, her round and plump body made Song Qinshu's scalp tingle. Why don't I make the best of it? Anyway, she's been affected by the soul transfer spell, so she won't remember what happened afterward. At the thought of keeping this world's most beautiful femme fatale in the mansion, getting along normally during the day and at night, treating her as a bed partner to play with without any responsibility, she would have no idea. A trace of red gradually appeared in Song Qinshu's eyes. Fortunately, the current Song Qinshu was not the same as when he had just transmigrated. After 2 years of tempering and growth, his will had become firmer and firmer. Only then could he suppress that tempting thought with great perseverance. Pulling his hand out of Chen Yuanyuan's clothes, Song Qinshu deliberately turned his head to the other side to avoid looking at her. After a long time, he finally calmed down. He turned back to help Chen Yuanyuan tidy up her messy clothes. Unexpectedly, Chen Yuanyuan took the opportunity to grab his hand and press it on her chest. Qinshu, I'm so hot. Perhaps it was because he had experienced too many ups and downs in his life. When Song Qinshu saw Chen Yuanyuan, the femme fatale who was once the most beautiful woman in the world, had become the quiet hermit with a heart as still as water. Usually, she looked dignified and gentle, but at this moment, she seemed to have become that peerless beauty again. Her voice was coquettish, and her moist red lips matched with her slight panting. Even an enlightened monk would not be able to resist the temptation to return to secular life if he saw her. Song Qinshu took a look, and his nose started to bleed like it was free. He almost lost his mind and was controlled by his inner demons again. He quickly sealed Chen Yuanyuan's acupoints before he calmed down. Fortunately, I didn't inject the joyful genuine qi into her body just now, otherwise things would have gotten out of hand. Song Qinshu rejoiced. Although it was every man's dream to have sex with a beauty like Chen Yuanyuan, under such circumstances, Song Qinshu could not help but feel uneasy. Song Qinshu closed his eyes and organized his words for a while. Only then did he undo Chen Yuanyuan's soul transfer technique, and at the same time, unsealed her acupoints. What happened just now? Chen Yuanyuan opened her eyes and asked blankly. We were just talking about how to increase our power. Who knew that you would suddenly be distracted, so I woke you up. Song Qinshu answered without a blush on his face. Is that so? Chen Yuanyuan frowned slightly. She vaguely felt that something was wrong. After thinking carefully, she suddenly said angrily, I didn't expect you to be this kind of person. Why do you say that, madam? Song Qinshu was shocked. Oh no, could it be that she still had the memory of what happened just now? Chen Yuanyuan blushed and turned her head away. I just want to say that I won't accept your method. Song Qinshu breathed a sigh of relief. It turned out that she only remembered this. That's good, madam, don't misunderstand. The method I said just now was deliberately used to test madam. Deliberately test me? Chen Yuanyuan asked curiously and couldn't help but turn her head back. Yes, if I didn't do this, how would I know madam's character? Song Qinshu couldn't help but admire his own adaptability. Madam also knows that with my current martial arts and reputation, coupled with the power in my hands, there are many women who will use various means to get close to me. I must eliminate those women with bad intentions. Chen Yuanyuan felt very wronged. She thought that she was obviously being teased by him, but in the end, she became a scheming woman. The more she thought about it, the angrier she became. She directly stood up. So in young master's heart, Yuanyuan has always been this kind of woman. I also don't dare to ask for a snub. I will leave now. Song Qinshu hurriedly pulled her back. Madam, please don't be angry. It was me who gauged the heart of a gentleman with my own mean measure. I will apologize to you, okay? In this world, men were superior to women. There were very few men who would take the initiative to apologize. Chapter 1357. As expected, Chen Yuanyuan's attention was diverted. She had seen a lot of people from all walks of life in Qinhuai River and knew that people in the martial arts world did have similar eccentricities. Song Qinshu coughed. After the test just now, Madam is indeed a person with a pure character, so I can pass this martial art to you without worry. Chen Yuanyuan could not remember what happened after she was affected by the soul transfer spell. Otherwise, if she heard Song Qinshu talking nonsense with a serious face, she would probably slap him in the face. At this time, she was dizzy listening to him, but she roughly understood that he wanted to teach her martial arts. She could not help but feel happy. After all, no woman could resist the temptation of eternal youth. However, she quickly frowned. But at my age, my meridians have long been closed. I'm afraid that I won't be able to learn anything from learning martial arts from the beginning. Although she did not know martial arts, she had been around many martial arts masters in the first half of her life, so she knew some general knowledge. Yes, generally speaking, Song Qinshu nodded, but this martial art of mine is very magical. It can let people who don't know martial arts quickly cultivate a powerful true qi. Really? Chen Yuanyuan asked doubtfully. Song Qinshu smiled faintly. Madam should have heard of my reputation in the martial arts world. If I say it's possible, it's naturally possible. The disdain that he showed at this moment reminded Chen Yuanyuan that other than being a dominating overlord, he was also a famous master in the martial arts world. She no longer had any doubts in her heart. That's great. In fact, she was not interested in practicing martial arts. After all, with her beauty that could cause the downfall of cities and countries, countless martial arts masters would sell their lives for her with just a snap of her fingers. However, the temptation of having the chance to maintain her youth after obtaining inner force was too great for her, so much so that she was jumping for joy like a little girl. However, Chen Yuanyuan had experienced too many things in her life. She quickly calmed down from her initial excitement. Since this martial art is so miraculous, it must be something extremely precious. As the saying goes, there is no reward for nothing. I cannot accept young master's kindness. Song Qingshu admired the woman in front of him very much. Perhaps more than 10 years ago, she was a beautiful woman who could bring disaster to the country and the people. Now, she had washed away all her splendor and became mature and elegant. Unlike ordinary little girls, she knew how to behave. Under such a great temptation, she could still stay sober and knew that there was no free lunch in this world. You worry too much, Song Qingshu explained with a smile. Aren't we friends? Besides, it's just a piece of cake for me. Chen Yuanyuan still shook her head. I already owe young master enough. If I continue to owe you, I'm afraid I won't be able to repay you in this lifetime. Free things were often the most expensive. Most girls didn't understand this, but she was different. After all these years of ups and downs, she had already seen through the nature of men. Although Song Qingshu might not have any bad intentions right now, which man didn't want her to repay him with her body in the end? Noticing the cautiousness between her brows, Song Qingshu could not help but feel pity for her. He knew that she had suffered too much in the first half of her life to be so cautious. Hasn't Madame already paid back what you owe me? Chen Yuanyuan was stunned. What do you mean? Song Qingshu smiled and said, Didn't we agree before that Madame would drink with me to repay me for saving your life? Now that the wine has been drunk, the debt of saving your life is even. That was just a joke. How can a mere drinking with you make up for the debt of saving your life? Chen Yuanyuan said anxiously. Song Qingshu shook his head. If it was an ordinary woman drinking with me, it indeed can't make up for the debt of saving my life. But Madame is different. Madame is famous in the world. Countless men in the world want to say a word to Madame but can't. But I can have Madame accompany me to drink with a smile. It's definitely a blessing of 3 lifetimes. A mere life-saving debt is nothing. Young master, Chen Yuanyuan's heart seemed to be hit by something. She understood that he deliberately said this to comfort her, and she could not help but feel a surge of warmth in her heart. Aren't we friends? It's really awkward for Madame to call me young master. Song Qingshu scratched the back of his head. In the future, Madame can just call me Qingshu. Chen Yuanyuan rolled her eyes at him. Aren't you also calling me Madame? It doesn't seem like you really treat me as a friend. Song Qingshu raised an eyebrow. Then I'll call you Yuanyuan. Chen Yuanyuan spat softly, and a blush appeared on her cheeks. Tui, I'm so much older than you. Who said you're older than me? If you don't believe me, we can go to the streets and ask anyone. 9 out of 10 people will think that you're my younger sister. Song Qingshu said seriously. With that mouth of yours, no wonder Yuanji Mimi is completely under your control. Although she knew that he was talking nonsense, which woman didn't like to be praised? Chen Yuanyuan was amused by him and couldn't stop giggling. It took her a while to recover. How can you call me like that? It's not appropriate. Song Qingshu knew that she would definitely not agree to him calling her so intimately, so he did not look disappointed. In that case, I'll call you Yuanyuanjia like Yuanji. Then, okay. Chen Yuanyuan originally intended to let him call her aunt, so that she could keep a sufficient distance from him. However, she always felt that this would be suspicious of taking advantage of him, so she finally gave up after thinking about it. Yuan jia, Song Qingshu deliberately lengthened his tone. Coupled with his question of punctuation, it sounded like he was calling the other party's nickname very intimately. Hearing this, Chen Yuan's heart skipped a beat. She hurriedly changed the topic. If Aku knows that we call each other sister and brother, she will definitely be angry. She is a generation lower for no reason. At that time, that girl will have to call you uncle. Imagining her daughter's angry look, Chen Yuan couldn't help but show a faint smile on her lips. Song Qingshu couldn't help but be stunned. When the time comes, we'll have our own seniority. I'll call you big sister and Aku little sister. In any case, when you two stand together, you look more like sisters to outsiders. Chen Yuan seemed to feel the heat of his gaze. She slightly turned her face away. You can call me whatever you want. Song Qingshu realized that his gaze was too invasive. He inwardly cried out in shame and withdrew his gaze. Sister Yuan, the reason why I want to teach you martial arts, in addition to us being friends, is also a little selfishness as a man. Chen Yuan's heart skipped a beat, and she gradually stopped smiling. Song Qingshu seemed to not notice the change in her expression. He continued to say, Sister Yuan, your beauty is a collection of the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. It is a work of art made by the gods of nature. If it gradually disappears in the years, it will really make people sad. So, out of selfishness, I hope that this perfect work of art can exist forever in the world. I hope that Sister Yuan will not reject my selfishness. Hearing this, Chen Yuan blushed. It's not as incredible as you make it sound. It's just a stinky body. If it's a stinky body, wouldn't other people in the world be so ashamed that they would commit suicide? Worried that she still couldn't put down her pride, Song Qingshu smiled and took out a booklet from his bosom. Sister Yuan, first practice this martial art and build a good foundation of internal energy. Then, I will teach you the everlasting youth art to keep you young. Chen Yuan really didn't refuse this time. Looking at the ordinary booklet in front of her, she couldn't help but wonder, can this let me learn profound internal energy? Don't be fooled by its ordinary appearance. It is the supreme divine martial art of India. It is called Shinzu Sutra of Samadhi Desire to Achieve Shinzu Sutra, Song Qingshu explained. Its cultivation method is different from the martial arts of the Central Plains. It focuses more on the training of the human body's muscles and bones and develops the human body's potential. It is most suitable for people who have no foundation in martial art. Because the original version of Shinzu Sutra was written in the Sanskrit muscle-bone strengthening scripture, it was really inconvenient to take it out. So, he made a few copies and gave one to Li Yuanji. He still had more in his hands. Really? Chen Yuan's face was full of surprise, but soon she showed a look of embarrassment. But how do I practice this secret manual? She had never practiced martial arts before, so naturally, she had no idea. This martial art is a bit difficult for men to practice, but women are born with good flexibility, so it's much easier to practice. Song Qingshu flipped to a page, pointed at the little person on it, and said, There are detailed diagrams on it. Follow the posture of these diagrams and circulate your true qi along the lines inside, and you'll be able to practice this divine skill. He didn't lie. Practicing Shinzu Sutra required the practitioner to make a lot of anti-human postures. In the original work, he was also able to practice Tan-yu by chance. At that time, he was poisoned, which caused his muscles to spasm and twisted into a few postures. That was how he got started. For ordinary people, they had to bear great pain to make those postures. If they were not careful, their muscles and ligaments would receive irreversible damage. Chen Yuan originally thought that the profound martial arts must be recorded in extremely obscure words, so she was worried that she would not be able to learn it and make a fool of herself in front of Song Qinshu. Now that she knew that it was just a simple picture, she could not help but feel happy. However, after casually flipping through 2 pictures, she faintly felt a sense of familiarity. Why do I feel like I have a sense of déjà vu? Of course I'm familiar with it. Song Qinshu pointed at a picture in the book and said with a smile, "The pose you made last night was this picture." Chen Yuanyuan finally reacted and instantly threw away the book in her hand, as if it was scalding hot. Her already charming face became even more charming. "I'm not practicing anymore." "Why?" Song Qinshu snickered in his heart, but on the surface, he looked puzzled. "You know why." Chen Yuanyuan rolled her eyes at him impatiently. When she thought of the embarrassing posture last night, she felt like she was about to explode. This is not a proper martial art. Song Qinshu's eyes were sharp, and he quickly grabbed the secret book to prevent it from falling into the soup. This is a proper Indian divine skill. How is it not proper? How is it proper to let a woman make that kind of posture? Chen Yuanyuan did not need to touch it to know that her face was burning. No matter if the practitioner is a man or a woman, they have to make all kinds of strange postures. These postures are called yoga in India, and they can be used to train one's physique. Because of this, it is suitable for people who do not have a foundation in martial arts to practice. Are you still afraid that I'm watching from the side? Aya, Chen Yuanyuan moaned and almost fainted. In order to avoid the palace guards who searched the cold palace, the 2 of them hid in the dark and narrow space under the bed. Both sides knew what happened, but the 2 of them seemed to have a tacit understanding not to mention it again. Chen Yuanyuan thought that the matter was over, but the other party brought it up again. Seeing Chen Yuanyuan burying her head in his chest like an ostrich, her exposed neck and ears were already completely red. How could she still say any words of rejection? Song Qinshu laughed inwardly. Previously, when he tried to be nice to her, she made all sorts of excuses. Now, when he tried to be forceful, she actually gave in. It was no wonder that in those idle dramas in his previous life, the warm men could only be spare tires. The male leads were all evil, wild, and overbearing CEOs. He carried Chen Yuanyuan all the way to the inner hall. Feeling the warm body in his arms and the soft touch, Song Qinshu couldn't help but sigh. No wonder so many men in the world were crazy for her. After hesitating for a moment, Song Qinshu finally chose to carry her into her own room. After all, he was going to teach her martial arts. She should be more relaxed in her own room. He gently placed Chen Yuanyuan on the bed. Seeing her hugging her knees with her face still red and her head buried between her legs, Song Qinshu coughed and placed the Shinzu scripture in front of her. "Sister Yuanyuan, let's start learning the first picture now, okay?" Chen Yuanyuan raised her head, bit her lip and stared at him hatefully. She thought to herself, "You just mentioned that matter, and now you're pretending that nothing happened. Are you deliberately teasing me?" But at least this way she could avoid embarrassment. Chen Yuanyuan hesitated for a moment, but she still took the opportunity to pretend that nothing had happened. She began to look at the first picture. "You should be familiar with this picture. It's the posture you made yesterday. Now you can do it again." There was no awkwardness or abnormality in Song Qinshu's tone. He had already thought it through. If he showed a little embarrassment, Chen Yuanyuan would only be more embarrassed. It was very easy for her to be possessed by the devil. It was better to use a businesslike tone to calm her down. Sure enough, when Chen Yuanyuan heard that she had to put on the posture yesterday again, a strong sense of shame surged in her heart. She looked up at Song Qinshu, but saw that his face was as usual, and his body seemed to emit a majestic and upright light. "What the hell, why do I have this feeling?" Chen Yuanyuan secretly spat. Now that things had come to this point, she had also thought it through. The 2 of them had experienced more shameful things, so this was nothing. "Okay." Chen Yuan calmed down and put on the strange and shameful posture yesterday on the bed again. Song Qingshu's eyes brightened. Chen Yuan was indeed a natural beauty. Sister Yuanji, a teenage girl, had to try a few times before succeeding. Chen Yuan was older by more than a year, but she could do these positions so easily. Have you seen enough? Although Chen Yuan could not see what Song Qingshu was doing from her current position, she did not need to look at him to know that he was staring at her. Hearing her pout and anger, Song Qingshu subconsciously replied, "I won't feel enough even if I look at it for a lifetime." Chen Yuan was speechless. She did not expect him to be so confident, and she did not know how to respond. She hesitated for a moment before asking, "What should I do next?" "Okay." Song Qingshu was worried that he would drool, so he wiped his mouth and replied, "Concentrate your mind and recall the acupuncture points on the portrait. Imagine that there is a stream of air flowing through those acupuncture points." "Okay." Chen Yuan closed her eyes, as if she was slowly condensing her qi. However, not long after, her eyebrows gradually furrowed. Song Qingshu had been observing her state. Seeing this, he asked, "What's wrong?" "I don't know those acupuncture points, so it's hard for me to memorize them. Every time I finally feel a bit of qi, I can't remember where to go next. I can only open my eyes to look, and when I open my eyes, the qi will disappear." Chen Yuan said awkwardly. She felt that she was definitely the kind of person who had a particularly poor aptitude for martial arts. Knowing that her mind was extremely sensitive, Song Qingshu did not blame her. Instead, he comforted her. "Actually, from another perspective, it's fortunate that you are cautious enough. If you remembered a wrong acupuncture point and tried to force your way through, it was very likely that you would go berserk." Chen Yuan had been dealing with men all her life, so how could she not hear that he was comforting her? She could not help but secretly sigh. Although he is a bit of a rascal sometimes, he is really a gentleman sometimes. "Let me teach you how to recognize the acupuncture point. That way, you can remember a bit more." Song Qingshu stretched out his hand to press on her body as he said, "I will press all the acupuncture points in this diagram once, so that you can remember the route of qi circulation." Seeing Song Qingshu's fingers reaching out to her neck, Chen Yuan's whole body trembled. This is not very convenient." Song Qingshu smiled faintly. "What's inconvenient about it? Which part of your body haven't I touched?" Chen Yuan's breath stopped, and she immediately withdrew her evaluation of him in her heart. For a moment, she was ashamed and embarrassed, and could not speak at all. "Okay, calm your mind." Song Qingshu patted her lightly and began to explain each acupuncture point to her. Chen Yuan's heart trembled, and as expected, she began to focus. The effect was much better when Song Qingshu explained and demonstrated at the same time. As his fingers moved, she gradually felt that there was really a flow of qi in her body, which was completely different from the fleeting feeling before. This time, the qi was always there, and she could not help but say excitedly, I feel it, I feel it." Song Qingshu was speechless. When practicing martial arts, you must avoid great sorrow or great joy. When you were excited, the qi that you had just gathered dispersed again. You have to start again. Chen Yuan stuck out her tongue guiltily. However, the feeling of having qi flow for the first time was too magical, and it was no wonder that she could not help it. "This time, don't be excited again." Song Qingshu glared at her and began to guide the qi for her again. Just now, Chen Yuan was worried that she would not be able to remember the acupuncture points, so she had been focusing on practicing. Now that she was doing it again, she suddenly noticed the heat coming from Song Qingshu's fingertips, and her face became even redder. As Song Qingshu continued to press, he suddenly felt Chen Yuan's body become softer and softer. He looked down and saw that her peach blossom eyes were covered with a dense layer of mist, and her watery eyes were full of blurriness. Her moist red lips opened and closed, as if she was silently panting. Song Qingshu's heart was beating wildly, and with great willpower, he looked away and asked in a hoarse voice, "Do you remember the Qi flow route in the first diagram?" "Yes, I do." Chen Yuan's voice at this time was a little more shaky than usual. "Then let's practice the second diagram, and try to help you practice it once today. After that, you will be able to practice according to those routes on your own." Song Qingshu swallowed his saliva, and said with great difficulty, "Okay." Chen Yuan's cheeks were also very hot, and she said in a small voice, help me, I'm stuck again." Looking at her gentle posture, Song Qingshu felt a ball of fire burning in his lower abdomen. "Then bear with the pain, I will help you smooth it out." Chapter 1359. He reached out to hold Chen Yuan's legs. The soft touch made Song Qingshu feel like he was about to turn into a beast. In order to avoid making a fool of himself, he had to divert his attention. "This is the second time. It seems that you still have to ask me to protect you when you practice Shinzu scripture in the future. Otherwise, what will you do if you get stuck again?" Chen Yuan's face was as red as a rose. It was unknown whether it was because of this or because of Song Qingshu's grip on her legs. "Bah, my flexibility is actually quite good. It's mainly because I haven't exercised for many years that my body is a little stiff. I'll get used to it after a few times." There were many beauties in Qinhuai River in those days. She could stand out not only because of her beauty, but also because of her talent. Besides the pipa, she was best at dancing. She was able to stand out in a competitive place like Qinhuai River. It could be imagined how good she was at dancing. Those who were good at dancing were all people with excellent flexibility. If Chen Yuan did these strange movements in Shinzu scripture in those days, it could be said that there was no difficulty at all. Unfortunately, she had been living alone for many years and had long stopped dancing. In addition, as she grew older, her body inevitably deteriorated. Even so, Chen Yuan could now relatively easily complete these strange movements that were completely impossible for ordinary people. The only drawback was that she needed help every time she unlocked it. Seeing her indignant look, Song Qingshu secretly laughed. Sometimes, a woman's competitiveness was really scary. After this interruption, Song Qingshu finally freed her hands and feet. He couldn't help but secretly admire his own determination. "Then let's start to practice the second picture." Chen Yuan didn't open her mouth, but hummed from her throat. Turning to the second picture, the posture on it was more strange than the previous one. Chen Yuan slightly frowned and tried to make the posture according to the picture. "Qingshu, am I in this posture?" Song Qingshu looked at it and shook his head. "Not very good." "Then help me." Chen Yuan was also very depressed. She had always been quite proud of her flexibility. But today, she didn't know whether the posture on Shinzu scripture was too strange or she was old, but she couldn't make the posture on it. "It might be a little painful. You have to bear with it," Song Qingshu reminded him. After all, many of the postures in the Shinzu scripture were inhuman. In order to complete those postures, the ligaments had to be stretched to a great extent. However, pressing the ligaments had always been a very painful thing. It was difficult for him to do it himself, so he had to rely on the help of others. "It's okay, I can bear it." Chen Yuan's stubbornness was also aroused at this moment. Chen Yuan tried to speak in a calm tone. "Can you go down first?" "Oh, okay." Song Qingshu looked embarrassed. After all, the other party's posture was correct. He naturally had no reason to continue pressing down. Then the room fell into a strange silence. Song Qingshu was hesitating whether he should say goodbye or not. Unexpectedly, Chen Yuan said, "How about we start practicing the next diagram?" "No problem." Song Qingshu looked at her in surprise. He began to guess what she was thinking at this time. He didn't know whether it was because her body was gradually adapting or something else. Although the next diagram's posture was a bit more difficult than the previous two diagrams, Chen Yuanyuan didn't ask Song Qingshu for help anymore. She was able to get the posture relatively easily. Song Qingshu secretly clicked his tongue when he saw this. At the same time, a strange thought emerged in his mind. Since she can do these difficult movements, she still asked me for help with ligament compression. Is she deliberately flirting with me? He quickly denied this speculation. After all, Chen Yuanyuan's previous reaction didn't seem to be fake. When he thought about it, he suddenly realized that her body had suddenly become softer than cotton when he was pressing down on her. This was probably the main reason. Next, Song Qingshu taught Chen Yuanyuan the meridians and acupoints of the next few diagrams. Then he said, "Now you revise what I just taught you. I'll help you by the side." Chen Yuanyuan nodded. She also understood that it was impossible for Song Qingshu to be by her side at all times. Only when she had thoroughly memorized this martial art would she be able to make it her own. Only then would it be convenient for her to cultivate it in the future. Looking at the beauty in front of him, who continued to put on all kinds of postures that made people want to vomit blood, Song Qingshu secretly made up his mind to let all the women around him practice Shinzu scripture in the future. Worried that he would turn into a werewolf if he continued to watch these extremely visually impactful pictures, Song Qingshu closed his eyes and began to silently recite the Qingxin Universal Kindness mantra. Not long after, Song Qingshu, who was drunk, gradually fell asleep leaning on the bed. While Chen Yuanyuan was practicing, she didn't dare to look in the direction of Song Qingshu. She was afraid that there would be a lightning strike or something like that. Fortunately, she was immersed in Shinzu scripture, so her attention was quickly diverted. After an unknown period of time, Chen Yuanyuan finally practiced all the diagrams again. Feeling the weak but continuous circulation of genuine qi in her body, she turned her head in surprise. When she was about to tell Song Qingshu the good news, she happened to see that he had fallen asleep. "Bah, I was worried for nothing." Chen Yuanyuan spat with a red face. Being with Chen Yuanyuan, his body would be hollowed out in minutes, and at the same time it made him lose the heart to do business. In the end, he decided to keep a distance from Chen Yuanyuan. While he was in a trance, the door was pushed open with a squeak, and Chen Yuanyuan came in carrying a bowl of soup. As soon as Song Qingshu saw her, he couldn't help but stare. Her bright and clean face exuded a layer of crystal-clear light, as if there wasn't the slightest trace of last night's exhaustion. Moreover, at this moment, her body had a kind of holy feeling, simply like a white jade guanine, completely without the slightest bit of flirtatious expression from last night. Song Qingshu secretly smacked his lips. Chen Yuanyuan was clearly born to absorb yang to nourish yin. I was tired like a dog, but not only did she get up earlier than me, she was even glowing with health. "You're awake." Seeing him staring blankly at her, Chen Yuanyuan smiled gently. Song Qingshu's attention was placed on the plate she was holding. "What is this?" "I made a bowl of soup for you. Rinse your mouth and see if it's to your liking." Chen Yuanyuan first put the plate on the table, then poured him a glass of water. Seeing that she had washed herself clean and looked completely like a good wife at home, Song Qingshu couldn't help but sigh. "From now on, the long skirt will be a smile. I will wash my hands and make soup for you." Chen Yuanyuan rebuked and rolled her eyes at him. Zhuo Wenjun's poem. It's a pity that her love was as deep as the sea, but in the end, she met the heartless Sima Xiangru. "Are you hinting that I will also be like this?" As a top courtesan, there were all kinds of scholars who interacted with her during the banquet, so she was naturally very familiar with this kind of illusion. "Of course not," Song Qingshu's smile froze. It wasn't easy for him to pretend to be cultured and show off, but he didn't expect to flatter the horse's leg. To avoid drawing trouble to himself, he hurriedly changed the topic. "Sister Yuanyuan woke up so early to make soup for me. Is it because you know that my body has been emptied, So you want to supplement me? Chen Yuanyuan's face turned red. You can clearly be an elegant young master, but you have to pretend to be such a rascal. Song Qinshu pulled her into his arms, feeling her warm and soft waist, and said with a smile, "Because a rascal is my nature. If I wasn't a rascal, how could I taste the taste of sister?" Chen Yuanyuan's face turned red when she heard this, and she lightly spat, then struggled out of his arms. "Don't talk nonsense so early in the morning, Minister Han is still waiting for you. Hurry up and eat, then leave early." Many readers joined the group for the benefits, but the monk once again stated that in today's environment, there was no such thing as benefits. Chapter 1361. What's so good about seeing Han Zhuang? How can it compare to being with you, sister? Song Qinshu said with a drooling face. Chen Yuanyuan twisted her waist slightly and dodged Song Qinshu's claw. "Don't mess around. Get up." Song Qinshu smiled and got up from the bed. "Sister, help me put on my clothes." Chen Yuanyuan glanced at his naked lower body. She couldn't help but recall the scene of him tormenting her last night. Her legs instantly turned to jelly. She hurriedly turned her head. "If you keep doing this, I'll get out." Song Qinshu knew that although the two of them had the most intimate physical relationship, they hadn't been intimate enough. Seeing her expression change, he didn't dare to continue being presumptuous. Okay, I'll wear it myself." Men didn't have as many things to do as women in this regard. He quickly put on his clothes and washed up. He excitedly ran to the table and sat down. "Let me try Sister Yuanyuan's cooking." "Be careful, it's hot," Chen Yuanyuan hurriedly reminded him. But her pair of starry eyes stared at him nervously, for fear that he would say it was too bad. After taking a sip, Song Qinshu furrowed his brows slightly. Chen Yuanyuan's heart sank. "Is it disgusting? In terms of craftsmanship alone, it's really not that good." Song Qinshu's words made Chen Yuanyuan's heart sink to the bottom of the valley. She continued, "But it's full of your affection. It suddenly makes an ordinary bowl of soup sweet and delicious. It's the finishing touch." Chen Yuanyuan chuckled. "You're obviously trying to make me happy." Song Qinshu said with an exaggerated expression, "Of course not. If people knew that you made it yourself and auctioned it publicly, I don't know how many men in the world would go crazy and how many princes would fight over it. The more I think of that scene, the more delicious it is." As soon as he finished speaking, he held the bowl and finished it. "Aren't you afraid of the heat?" Chen Yuanyuan couldn't help but feel happy even though she knew that he was trying to coax her. Seeing Chen Yuanyuan's bright and beautiful smile under the morning sun, Song Qinshu couldn't help but be tempted. Just as he was about to bully her again, a maid suddenly knocked on the door, reporting to young master, "There is a group of people outside, saying they want to see young master." Song Qinshu was displeased to be interrupted in the midst of his excitement. Did they reveal their identities? The leader said that his surname is Chen. This time, he brought the person young master asked him to find, the maid replied. "So it's Chen Yuliang." Song Qinshu immediately understood. Previously, he knew that the servants and manservants in the residence were all spies from various forces, so he asked Chen Yuliang to help him select some new people with clean backgrounds and trustworthy backgrounds. "Bring them here." After Song Qinshu gave the order, he turned around and held Chen Yuanyuan's soft and delicate hand. "Big Sister Yuanyuan, I've found some trustworthy people to serve you. When the time comes, you won't have to be as cautious as you are now, afraid that your identity will be exposed." "Thank you," Chen Yuanyuan was touched. It should be known that she had covered her face when she went to the kitchen this morning, afraid that others would see her appearance. "How do you plan to thank me?" Song Qinshu reached out and pulled her into his arms as she cried out in surprise. Feeling her soft body, it was so comfortable that he almost whistled. "It's half the day now," Chen Yuanyuan suddenly exclaimed. Song Qinshu immediately laughed. "I just want to hug you." So what if it's in the middle of the day? Big Sister Yuan, what are you thinking? Am I thinking of something wrong? Chen Yuan's snow-white skin flushed red. She lowered her head to look at the big hand in her clothes. Where do you put your hand? Song Qingshu laughed mischievously. This is how I hug someone. Chen Yuan was speechless. She wanted to say something, but Song Qingshu had already kissed her. She could only swallow the rest of her words. When Chen Yuliang came, he just happened to see Chen Yuan hiding at the side with her hair in a mess. Even though her back was facing him, he could tell from the blush on her neck what kind of erotic scene had just happened. You're really lucky with women. Chen Yuliang looked at him with envy, jealousy, and hatred. However, he hid his emotions very well. Young master, I've already found the people you asked me to find yesterday. They are all people with clean backgrounds. Song Qingshu nodded with satisfaction. Good. In the future, the inner residence will be left to them to take care of. Also, leave some experts to guard the surroundings. Yes, young master. Chen Yuliang immediately ran down to assign task. Song Qingshu did not chase away the servant girls and manservants from before. He only sent them to the outer residence. After all, he had to leave some face for the various forces. There was no benefit in completely shedding all pretense of cordiality. As for the people that Chen Yuliang had brought with him, he did not need to think to know that they were his spies. However, dealing with him alone was much easier than dealing with the various forces. Moreover, Chen Yuliang was currently under his absolute control. I wonder how Jiruo and the others are doing in digesting Li Kuxiu's territory. It was not that Song Qingshu did not want to use his own people. It was just that his direct subordinates were currently digesting the results of the previous battle and could not spare any more manpower. I'm too lacking in manpower. Song Qingshu frowned. He knew that his forces had reached a bottleneck. After sending Chen Yuliang away, Song Qingshu originally wanted to be affectionate with Chen Yuan again. However, he knew that Chen Yuan would sternly refuse. Qingshu, I originally thought that you were different from other men. It seems that I'm a little disappointed. Song Qingshu gave a wry smile. You don't have to be so serious. Chen Yuan's face was still frosty. Qingshu, I don't want you to waste your career because of me. I've been a femme fatale for most of my life. I don't want to be one for the rest of my life. Song Qingshu was silent. He knew that his infatuated appearance had evoked some of her past memories. He could not help but feel even more sorry for her. Don't worry. I'm not like those men. I know very well what I should do and what I shouldn't do. I was just joking with you just now. Chen Yuan's expression softened. Qingshu, Han Xingzhou is, after all, a prime minister of the southern Song dynasty. Don't offend him over some trivial matters. His prime minister status is of no use to me, Song Qingshu muttered. Noticing Chen Yuan's reproachful eyes, he hurriedly said, All right, I'm afraid of you. I'll go over now, okay? Chen Yuan finally smiled. Suddenly, her face turned slightly red. She whispered, I'll wait for you at home. Song Qingshu raised his eyebrows. Are you hinting something to me? Chen Yuan smiled maturely and charmingly. What do you think? Song Qingshu's expression brightened. He quickly ran out, laughing as he ran. Then I'll go early and come back early. Chen Yuan secretly spat, but her eyes were full of a gentle smile as she watched his disappearing figure. As the saying goes, the horse galloped with success. Song Qingshu soon arrived at the Han mansion. He found that in addition to Han Xingzhou, there were some unfamiliar faces in the mansion. It was not accurate to say that they were unfamiliar faces. In fact, he had met many of them once in the court, but there were so many ministers in the court that it would be strange if he could recognize them all. As if seeing Song Qingshu's awkwardness, Han Xingzhou pulled him into the crowd. Brother Song, let me introduce you. This is Minister Chen, who is in charge of the world's finances. He is on equal footing with the Prime Minister and the Privy Envoy. Song Qingshu instantly paid attention. After all, in addition to his important identity, this person was also the patriarch of the Chen family. In terms of seniority, he was Chen Yuanyuan's uncle. Although his hair was a little mottled and he was no longer young, he still had a handsome face. In particular, his meticulously trimmed beard gave his elegant temperament a hint of masculine charm. The Chen family's genes are really good. Song Qingshu looked at them in admiration. This is the political advisor Wu Qian. This is the commander of the bodyguard horse army Wu Gong. Han Xingzhou continued to introduce. As Song Qingshu exchanged greetings, he secretly clicked his tongue. This should be the core circle of Han Xingzhou's group. The Han family of Zhending, the Qin family of Haining, and the Wu family of Longgong were all prominent wealthy families. When they joined forces, they were indeed a terrifying force. As for this one, I don't think I need to introduce him. Han Xingzhou pointed at Song Qingshu and smiled. Prince Song has been in the limelight recently. I'm afraid there is no one in the court who doesn't know you. As soon as Chen Zichang's voice fell, the group couldn't help but laugh. Not at all. Song Qingshu cupped his hands and pretended to be polite to these old foxes. The group chatted for a while, and Han Xingzhou invited everyone to take their seat. Song Qingshu had originally planned to find a random seat, but who knew that Han Xingzhou would insist that he sit at the head of the table. Of course, Song Qingshu refused. Although he was young and successful, he also knew that the tallest tree in the forest would be destroyed by the wind. The people here were all big shots with great power. In addition, there were many rules in the officialdom. He didn't want to offend them carelessly. The two sides were in a stalemate. Next to him, Wu Qian laughed. Prince Song, don't be modest. You will soon become the person with the highest status in our group. If you don't sit at the head of the table, who will? Song Qingshu was startled. Although in terms of actual power, he was stronger than these people, they were high officials of the Song dynasty. He couldn't control them. Why did they have such an attitude? As if noticing his confusion, Han Xingzhou chuckled and said, I invited young master here this time to celebrate in advance. Celebrate what? Song Qingshu became more and more confused. He began to wonder if Zhao Guo had already agreed to the marriage of the two princesses. Tomorrow the imperial edict will come. At that time, you will be conferred the title of King Qi. Han Xingzhou patted his shoulder and smiled. King Qi? For a moment, Song Qingshu was both surprised and happy. After all, although he had always called himself the Golden Snake King, in the eyes of the mainstream, he was just a bandit king. Even many people in the Jianghu didn't take him seriously. If he was conferred the title of King Qi, he would be a legitimate prince. He would be completely different from the previous Golden Snake King. As for the fact that he was conferred the title of king by the Southern Song dynasty, there was some suspicion that he had been recruited. But Song Qingshu didn't care. Although the Southern Song dynasty was weak, after the fall of the Ming dynasty, the Southern Song dynasty became the only legitimate dynasty in the eyes of the Han people. Obtaining the official recognition of the Southern Song dynasty was equivalent to obtaining the recognition of the Han people in the world. In ancient times, the most important thing was to have a legitimate title. Once one had a title, everything would be done with half the effort. The power of the Golden Snake Battalion was very important. To Zhao Guo, who was living a peaceful life, the Golden Snake Battalion could serve as the Southern Song dynasty's barrier in the north. Then, he could enjoy peace. If the Golden Snake Battalion was roped in by the enemy state, he would not be able to eat or sleep well. Because he had learned from the mistakes of the past, he very generously bestowed the title of Prince of Qi. After all, the other party's army and power were ready-made. He only needed to provide an empty title. Even though he had figured out the trick, he still had to respond to Han Xingzhou's olive branch. Song Qinshu hurriedly thanked him. Han Xingzhou chuckled and stroked his goatee. Even though his words were polite, his eyes were filled with pride. During the banquet, a group of people were toasting each other. Han Xingzhou suddenly opened his mouth and said, "Prince Song, oh no, I should call you Prince of Qi now." Song Qingshu's face darkened. "Minister Han, you are too kind. With our friendship, there is no need for such a title. From now on, just call me Qinshu." Han Xingzhou was obviously very satisfied with Song Qingshu's understanding. "Ha ha ha, in that case, I won't stand on ceremony. But, Qinshu, you don't have to call me Minister Han in the future. Just call me by my courtesy name, Jeffu." In this world, only people who were very close to each other could call each other by their courtesy name. Han Xingzhou was obviously trying to get closer to each other. Naturally, Song Qingshu would not be stupid enough to refuse. He agreed with a slight excitement. "Does Qingshu know of our dynasties Prince Xn and Prince Fu?" Han Xingzhou asked. Song Qingshu nodded. "There's no one who doesn't know of Prince Xin and Prince Fu's fame. They're our empire's western barrier. Back then, they defeated the Golden Crow technique in the West and stabilized the situation. They can be said to be the greatest contributors to the imperial court's ability to maintain half of the empire." The reason why Song Qinshu praised the two was that, firstly, he truly admired these two heroes. Secondly, there were members of the Wu family sitting at the banquet. It didn't cost him anything to say a few good words, and he could easily win the Wu family's favor. Why not? Sure enough, Wu Qian and Wu Gong revealed excited expressions. Han Xingzhou glanced at the two and smiled as he introduced them to Song Qinshu. "Qinshu, they happen to be members of the Wu family. Ifu Wu Qian is the younger brother of Prince Xin and Prince Fu, while Wu Gong is Prince Fu's son. The long-gone Wu family is indeed full of talented people. Everyone in the family is loyal to their cause. I'm impressed," Song Qinshu said with admiration. With Song Qingshu's current status, Wu Qian and Wu Gong immediately felt very honored and quickly returned the greeting. After chatting for a while, Song Qinshu suddenly asked curiously, "Oh right, why don't I see Prince Xion's son?" Wu Qian's and Wu Gong's countenances changed slightly. Han Xingzhou smiled bitterly and said, "Qinshu, you might not know this, but Prince Xion's lineage is inherited by his son, Wu Ting. He took on the role of the commander of the Dragon and Divine Guards, but he passed away at an early age, causing this lineage to decline. Thankfully, there is a successor. Some time ago, I was saved by Prince Xion's grandson, Wu Shi Wu Tianda. Like father, like son. Not only is Wu Shi highly skilled in martial arts, but he is also a very chivalrous person." Song Qingshu's heart skipped a beat. Wasn't the Wu Shi and Wu Tianda they were talking about Ling Huchong in disguise? It was one thing for Han Xingzhou to not know Wu Tianda in the past, but why did the Wu family not recognize that he was a fake? Despite the doubts in his heart, Song Qinshu still praised, "Brother Wu is indeed righteous and a gentleman through and through." This was different from the many pleasantries he had exchanged earlier. He was praising Ling Huchong sincerely. After all, Ling Huchong was worthy of the title of a gentleman. Wu Gong suddenly sighed emotionally. Back then, uncle and father guarded the land of Bashu, which was the imperial court's western barrier. It's a pity that our generation is unworthy. Most of us don't have much ability and can't inherit our father's legacy. Chen Ziqiang consoled him. "Nephew, there's no need to belittle yourself. The elites of the imperial court are all in the imperial guards, and the elites of the imperial guards are all in the 3 offices. For you to be in charge of one of the 3 offices at such a young age, you've already done Prince Xian and Prince Fu a great honor." Although the Privy Council of the Song dynasty was the highest authority in the military, it only had the power to mobilize troops and had no right to train them. Normally, the military was controlled by the 3 offices. the front hall department, the horse commander of the Imperial Guards, and the infantry commander of the Imperial Guards. As the commander of the horse commander, Wu Gong could be said to be one of the three heavyweights in the military to a certain extent. My nephew Tienda, in terms of family background, experience, martial arts, and character, originally had a great chance to be the commander of the Sun Supporting Army and the Sky Martial Army. It's a pity that someone got in the way and rejected him at the last moment, Wu Gong said bitterly. In the Imperial Guards of the Song Dynasty, the Sun Holding Army, the Sky Martial Army, the Dragon Guard, and the Divine Guard were called the Four Armies. The Sun Holding Army was the Cavalry Army, and the Sky Martial Army was the Infantry Army. The Dragon Guard was the horse commander of the Imperial Guards, and the Divine Guard was the infantry commander of the Imperial Guards. I plan to nominate Tienda to be the commander of the Imperial Army stationed in the Qing State, as well as the governor of the Qing State and the pacification commissioner of the West Road of the Li State. With the Wu family's many years of business in Sichuan, and Tienda's ability, it won't be difficult to make Qing Song a mere figurehead and actually control Sichuan. Wu Gong smiled bitterly and said, "It's such an important position. Jia Sherdao will definitely come for it. As far as I know, he has recruited Guo Jing and Huang Rong, who are under Lu Wendy's command, to the capital. I think he's going to recommend Guo Jing for this position." Wu Qian's face was also filled with worry. This is troublesome. This Guo Jing has a very high reputation in the hearts of the world. At the same time, he is highly skilled in martial arts and can lead troops into battle. Tienda has no advantage over him at all. Chapter 1363. Song Qingshu finally understood why Han Xingzhou had invited him here this time. The group of people seemed to be having a heated discussion, but in fact, they were all talking to him. They had done so much to get him to help. Becoming the focus of the group of people, Song Qingshu said with a wry smile, "I'm not a member of the imperial court, so I can't say anything about this." While Song Qingshu was a guest in the Han mansion, Guo Jing and Huang Rong also visited the Jia mansion. Jia Sherdao even went out to greet them with great courtesy. Although they knew that Jia Sherdao was just pretending to win them over, Guo Jing and Huang Rong still enjoyed Jia Sherdao being one of the top figures in the imperial court. This time, in order to win them over, Jia Sherdao held a family banquet and invited them to show their closeness. Therefore, he didn't invite outsiders, and all the guests were the more important figures in the Jia mansion. Jia Zhen, Jia Lian, Jia Rong, and other powerful figures in the Jia mansion almost all showed up. When they saw Huang Rong's beautiful face, the men in the Jia mansion were shocked. Jia Lian poked Jia Rong secretly and joked, "She seems to be more beautiful and charming than the one in your house." Although the two were one generation apart in seniority, they were similar in age and had similar interests. They were not so much uncle and niece, but more like bad friends. As for the one he mentioned, it was Jia Rong's wife, Qin Keqing, who was a famous beauty in the circle of the rich and powerful in Lin. That's not necessarily true. Jia Rong snorted, but her eyes were fixed on Huang Rong, and she couldn't move her eyes away. Jiao Yan secretly despised her, thinking, "You pretend to be a loving couple, but secretly you are thinking about some dirty things." However, Huang Rong's beauty also made him feel a little itchy. He wanted to talk to her, but unfortunately, he couldn't find a topic to talk to. Suddenly, his heart lit up. He pulled Jia Rong to Huang Rong's side and said with a smile, "I've long heard of Chief Huang's great name. Now that I've seen you today, you are indeed a heroine. I really admire you." Jia Sherdao had been talking to Guo Jing about something, so he couldn't be distracted. However, Huang Rong had clearly heard their conversation and felt the desire in their words. She was very unhappy, but she knew that Guo Jing was a very honorable person in the Jia clan. There was no need to ruin Brother Jing's career by falling out with him. Thus, she suppressed the displeasure in her heart and dealt with the two of them in a pleasant manner. When he heard her tone was gentle and polite, how could Jiao Yan be unable to sense the faint sense of alienation within it? He felt his heart itch even more, and he couldn't help but tease her. Gang leader Huang, this nephew of mine seems to have some fate with you. Huang Rong's expression changed. She was a married woman, but he was frivolously talking about fate. It was obvious that he was up to no good. If she had met such a lecher on a normal day, she would have used the dog-beating stick method to make him fall on his face as a punishment. Unfortunately, she was in the Jia family now, so she hesitated and didn't do anything. Jiao Yan took the opportunity to continue, "My nephew's name is Rong, which happens to be the same as your wife. Don't you think it's fate?" Huang Rong smiled faintly. "My name is too common. There are at least 800 people in Xiangyang City. It's not fate at all." Seeing her smile, Jiao Yan and Jia Rong's minds were filled with the beauty of her pearly white teeth and red lip. They only felt dizzy. Jia Rong hurriedly said, "How is this not fate? After 10 years of cultivation, we crossed the same boat. After 100 years of cultivation, we slept together. Our names are the same. No matter what, it is no less than 10 years of fate." Seeing the two of them push their luck, Huang Rong knew that if she allowed them to continue talking, they would say more stupid things. So, she suddenly glared at them. Jiao Yan and Jia Rong only saw a blur in front of their eyes. That bright and charming woman had disappeared, and the person standing in front of them was like a fiendish yiksha. They were so frightened that they cried out in alarm and hurriedly took a few steps back. They pointed at her with a terrified expression and were speechless. Jia Sherdao couldn't help but stop and look over. Jia Zhen walked over, frowned, and stared at his son, Jia Rong. "What are you shouting for?" Although he was Jiao Yan's brother, he was about the same age as Jia Rong's father. So, when he scolded Jia Rong, Jiao Yan also trembled. The two of them were still in shock. They pointed at Huang Rong and couldn't say anything. Huang Rong smiled sweetly. "Just now, the two young masters asked me about the battlefield in Xiangyang. I accidentally described it too realistically and scared them. I'm really sorry." Jia Zhen was also dazzled by her smile. He couldn't help but think that she was even prettier than his daughter-in-law. Seeing that he was also staring at her, Huang Rong's face darkened. Jia Zhen was a lot older, after all, and he was much more shrewd than Jiao Yan and Jia Rong. Noticing the change in Huang Rong's expression, he immediately realized what was going on. He turned around and glared at his brother and son. "You two are a disgrace to the Jia family. You know, we are a martial family. How could you be so scared when you heard about the battlefield?" Jiao Yan and Jia Rong didn't dare to refute, but they were confused. Were they really scared by the battlefield? Why didn't they remember what just happened? Seeing the two of them being reprimanded, Huang Rong slightly pursed her lips and smiled. It turned out that she had just used the 9-in manual soul-shifting technique. How could these two hedonistic playboys withstand it? Naturally, they were being played around in circles. However, Huang Rong's complacency didn't last long. She felt weak in her body, and it took her a while to steady herself. Huang Rong lowered her head and touched her belly. She sighed with melancholy. Her physical strength and energy were greatly reduced after she was pregnant. She really didn't know if this decision was right or wrong. Not long after, everyone was seated. Jia Sherdao said to Guojing, "As I told you before, I've already made arrangements for the commanding officer in Sichuan. Now I'm going to let you take charge of the military in Sichuan." Hearing this news, Guojing looked refreshed. He wasn't happy about the promotion, but he cared about the people, and he was the successor of the Book of Wumu. Because he didn't have an official position in Xiangyang, he was often hindered by Lu Wendi, so he couldn't fulfill many of his ambitions. Now that the Mongols and the southern Song dynasty had stopped fighting, the crisis in Xiangyang was temporarily resolved. If he took charge of the military in Sichuan, he was confident that he could train an elite army that would definitely shine in the future, whether the Mongols came back or reclaimed the Central Plains. However, before he had time to answer, Jia Sherdao continued, "But now there is a big problem, and that is, you have a competitor, Wu Shi." Wu Shi? Huang Rong's attention was also attracted by this matter, since it was related to her husband's future. Jia Sherdao explained, "Wu Shi is the grandson of Prince Xn Wu Lin. He used to be a general in Xuanzhou. At that time, everything about him seemed very mediocre, but he showed extraordinary talent on his way back to the capital. Not only was he skilled in martial arts, but he was also quite talented. He was recommended by Han Xingzhou to be the imperial armament in the palace. After all, he is the son of Prince Xn. I guess he was hiding his strength before," Jia Sherdao said to himself with some uncertainty. Huang Rong couldn't help but say, "Back then, Prince Xian and Prince Fu had been in Sichuan for many years, and Sichuan was full of officials of the Wu family. If we compete with the children of the Wu family, I'm afraid we won't have any advantage." Jia Sherdao was very satisfied with the word "we" that Huang Rong said. He had talked a lot with Guojing before, but Guojing kept talking about the common people and the common people, which made him feel that Guojing didn't seem to be loyal to him at all. That made him very unhappy. Now that Huang Rong had made her side clear, it was exactly what he wanted to see. "Don't worry about that, Master Huang," Jia Sherdao explained with a smile. "If it were 10 years ago, we wouldn't be able to compete with the descendants of the Wu family. But now that Prince Xian and Prince Fu are dead, and Sichuan has been conquered by the Mongols, the Wu family's power in Sichuan has been broken. Moreover, you and your wife have been guarding Xiangyang for many years, and your reputation has already spread all over the world. In terms of martial arts and reputation, no one is a match for Master Guo, so we still have a good chance of winning this time." In the Han residence, Han Xingzhou said something similar. "In fact, we have already won this matter. We just need Qingshu's help for the last point." Song Qingshu was very surprised. After all, in terms of martial arts, reputation, and military experience, Ling Huchong, who was disguised as Wu Tianda, was far from a match for Guojing. Why did Han Xingzhou think he had a good chance of winning? As if he had seen through his confusion, Han Xingzhou said with a smile, "Qingshu is not an outsider, so I'll be frank with you." After hesitating for a while, as if he was thinking about how to phrase it, Han Xingzhou said, "What does Qingshu think is the art of emperors?" "The art of balance, of course," Song Qingshu answered without thinking. At the same time, he was secretly shocked that a minister dared to talk about such a topic in private. Obviously, he wanted to get closer to Song Qingshu. However, his recklessness exposed the weakness of his character. As the saying went, if the emperor didn't keep secrets, he would lose his minister, and if the minister didn't keep secrets, he would lose his chastity. Han Xingzhou looked at him in surprise. After all, he had been in the officialdom for so many years, and the Han family had hundreds of years of inheritance, so he could understand this point. He didn't expect that a young man in Jianghu could see it so clearly. Seeing everyone's surprise, Song Qingshu laughed secretly. He hadn't watched so many palace dramas in his previous life for nothing. Besides, compared to Han Xingzhou's armchair strategist, he had been an emperor in the Forbidden City. Temporarily suppressing his shock, Han Xingzhou continued, "There are 3 most important war zones in the dynasty: Jianghui, Jinghu, and Sichuan. Now Lu Wendi, the commanding officer of Jinghu, is Jia Sherdao's confidant. 60 to 70% of the officials in the Jinghu War Zone are Jia Sherdao's direct subordinate. Now that Jia Sherdao has the position of commanding officer of Sichuan, if his people are in charge of the military power in Sichuan, won't he control 2/3 of the world? The emperor is a wise man, so he won't tolerate such a thing." Chen Ziqiang, the minister of planning, echoed, "That's right." Therefore, although Guojing is the most suitable candidate to be the commander of all the armies in terms of martial arts, strategy, and reputation, the emperor still hasn't approved it. In the end, he decided to let Guojing compete with Tiende to decide who will be the commander. This shows the emperor's true attitude. Chapter 1364. Song Qingshu had to agree with Han Xingzhou's judgment. After all, if one put aside their standpoint, Guojing was more suitable than Ling Huchong in all aspects. Since he didn't appoint Guojing directly, but went through all the trouble to arrange a martial arts competition, it was clear that Zhao Guo had other intentions. But even so, Guojing had already cultivated the 9-yin manual to perfection, and the 18 dragon subduing palms was also famous. Adding on the left and right inter-fighting arts, he could be said to be one of the top masters in the world. Ling Huchong's 9 swords beyond the swords was amazing, but he seemed to only be more familiar with the sword-breaking form. His attainments in the palm-breaking form and chi-breaking form were probably not enough to deal with Guojing. Fortunately, he had also practiced the I Ching scripture, which increased his chances of winning by 30%. But even so, in Song Qingshu's judgment, if he really fought with Guojing, Ling Huchong would still be at a disadvantage, at most 40 to 60%. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but smile bitterly. If it really is a martial arts competition, Wu Shi probably won't have any advantage. Han Xingzhou nodded. That's right. Tiende's martial arts are high, but Guojing's reputation is out there. According to the analysis of our advisors, the chances of winning are not optimistic. I originally had some doubts about their conclusion, but now that Qingshu has said so, there is no doubt. A person's reputation was like a tree's shadow. These years, Song Qingshu's achievements were brilliant, and in the hearts of others, he was already a grandmaster. Naturally, Han Xingzhou wouldn't doubt his judgment. How does Jiefu want me to help? Song Qingshu asked curiously. The other had done so much good, and it was time for him to return the favor. If it was a simple matter, he wouldn't mind helping out. Han Xingzhou didn't speak directly, but gave Wu Qian a look. Wu Qian understood and said with a smile, Guojing's martial arts are unparalleled, and there are probably few in the world who can beat him. Qingshu, you are one of them. If Qingshu can give him internal injuries before the battle, Tiende's chances of winning will greatly increase. Song Qingshu frowned as he listened. Sure enough, there was no such thing as a good banquet. This is no small matter. I need to think about it carefully. He didn't refuse directly. After all, they had been smiling at him, so there was no need to embarrass them and make enemies out of nothing. Moreover, to some extent, he and Han Xingzhou had the same interest. If Jia Sherdao got what he wanted, it wouldn't be a good thing for him. Don't worry. Seeing that he didn't refuse on the spot, Han Xingzhou and the others were overjoyed and didn't bring up the matter again. They just kept drinking wine to warm up the relationship between the two sides. As for the Jia family, after seeing off Guojing and Huang Rong, Jia Sherdao asked in the study, What do you think about the kung fu competition between Guojing and Wu Shi? A figure flashed out of the shadows. It was Liaoyingzhong, Jia Sherdao's most valued advisor. He said, Prime Minister, Guojing's 9-yin scripture has been practiced to the highest level, and it combines the hardness and softness of the 18 dragon subduing palms. I'm afraid even Hong Qigong can't compete with him. Although Wu Shi has shown amazing swordsmanship these days, I don't think he can compete with Guojing. Probably? Jia Sherdao frowned. He was obviously very dissatisfied with this statement. Liaoyingzhong hurriedly replied, According to my judgment, Guojing has at least a 70% chance of winning. 70% is not enough, Jia Sherdao said coldly. I need a 100% chance. Prime Minister, what do you mean? Liaoyingzhong asked curiously. Find a way to deal with Wu Shi in advance. Jia Sherdao's eyes flashed with coldness. Liaoyingzhong smiled bitterly and said, Wu Shi is a member of the Wu family, so I'm afraid it will be very difficult to buy him over. If we use force against him in advance, Once Han Xingzhou has something on us, it will be bad. Jia Sherdao stroked his beard and said calmly, "In life, what people pursue is nothing more than power, money, and women. Since power and money can't move him, we should start with women. I remember that when Wu Shi was the general of Quanzhou, he seemed to be quite lustful. A leopard can't change its spots. It doesn't look like he's faking it. At this critical moment, I'm afraid ordinary women won't work. How about we ask Lady Rong?" Liaoyingzhong asked carefully. "It's not a big deal to sacrifice for the family at this critical moment." Jia Sherdao frowned and said, "But in case our people alert Wu Shi, we should ask Lord Beijing to help us with this." "Yes." Liaoyingzhong's heart skipped a beat. Lord Beijing was very good at this, so it was perfect to ask him to help. When Wu Shi was the general of Quanzhou, his martial arts skills were very ordinary, but on his way back to the capital, his sword skills improved by leaps and bounds. I don't believe that he was hiding his skills before. Do you think it's possible that he obtained the Bixia sword manual by chance when he passed by Fuzhou? Jia Sherdao suddenly asked. Liaoyingzhong nodded and said, "It's very likely. We sent so many people before, but none of them obtained the Bixia sword manual. Obviously, someone else got it before us. Wu Shi happened to pass by Fuzhou at that time. How could there be such a coincidence in this world?" Jia Sherdao said expressionlessly, "We'll ask Lady Rong to ask him about it." Yes. A beautiful and sad face appeared in Liaoyingzhong's mind, and he couldn't help but sigh. Since ancient times, beautiful women were often unlucky. The ancients were right. By the way, Liaoyingzhong was about to leave, but Jia Sherdao stopped him and said, "Have you found out where young master is?" Liaoyingzhong suddenly had a cold sweat on his forehead and said, "Not yet. Young master seems to have disappeared from the world." Jia Sherdao looked gloomy and said, "Then continue to investigate. I don't believe that anyone can hide from us." Yes. Liaoyingzhong left the study and found that his clothes were soaked in cold sweat. While the Han family and the Jia family were discussing the martial arts competition between Guojing and Wu Shi, the attention of the palace was also on the two of them. "Sir, I don't want Jia Sherdao to control the capital and Sichuan, so I arranged this martial arts competition. Isn't it too obvious?" Zhao Go said to a shadow. He was wearing a black cloak, and he seemed to be shrouded in a thick layer of fog. Huang Chang's voice sounded, "The emperor is the king. He doesn't need to consider the feelings of his subjects before making any decisions." He didn't address him respectfully at all, and called him emperor like an elder lecturing a junior. Zhao Go, who was always narrow-minded, didn't seem to be angry at all. "That's true." Zhao Go smiled. He gently stroked the golden dragon throne, an intoxicated look on his face. Huang Chang was silent for a long time, then suddenly said, "Actually, even if His Majesty didn't do this, I would have made a similar suggestion." "Why?" Zhao Go was instantly curious. Huang Chang never made suggestions to him, and now that he was speaking for the first time, it definitely wasn't because of the art of balance. "Does His Majesty still remember the incident of Chen Xiaoyi and Huang Chang wearing the yellow robe?" Huang Chang asked. "Yes." Zhao Go's expression didn't look good. Obtaining the throne had always been a knot in the hearts of the emperors of the Zhao and Song dynasties. Huang Chang didn't care about his feelings at all. He continued, "Back then, Chai Rong had 4 princes. Chai Zongxuan abdicated and became King Zheng. Chai Shijin was adopted by Pan Mei and changed his name to Pan Lang. At the mention of Pan Lang, Huang Chang's eyes shone with a frightening light, as if he cared a lot about this name. After a long time, he continued, Chai Shihui was adopted by Lu Yan and changed his name to Lu Duoshuan." Zhao Go snorted coldly. These 2 traitors tried to rebel. Luckily, Emperor Taizong was wise, and the Song dynasty had the mandate of heaven, so they didn't succeed. "The mandate of heaven?" Huang Chang smiled noncommittally. "If it really was the mandate of heaven, then the Chai family wouldn't have been burned by the wildfire. Zhao Go frowned and said, after the king of Wei failed in his rebellion, Lu Duoshuan was exiled to Cliff Mountain. Pan Lang's whereabouts were unknown, and we haven't heard any news of him since. He most likely died in some wild mountain. How can it be considered as the wildfire not burning? Chapter 1365. Hearing Huang Cheng's words, Zhao Go's expression changed. He finally remembered some past events. During the founding of the Zhou dynasty, Guo Wei, several of his sons were killed by Lu Qingyu. As his adopted son, Chai Rong became his only choice to inherit the throne. Guo Wei saw Chai Rong as his own son, and Chai Rong saw Guo Wei as his father. Perhaps modern people might not understand, but in ancient times, after you adopted a family, you would no longer have any relationship with your previous family. What you inherited was the family's incense. Before the Chenqié rebellion, Chai Rong was called Guo Rong on all official documents. Even he himself thought that his name was Guo Rong. But the heavens were jealous of the talented. Guo Rong died of illness in the prime of his life. Zhao Kuang-yin took the throne from a widow and orphan. Knowing that he did not inherit the throne properly, to divert everyone's attention, he restored Guo Rong's surname to his before adoption. Guo Rong became Chai Rong. He did this to make the world think that Chai Rong was not the later Zhou emperor's biological son. If there was a problem with the legitimacy of the throne, then Zhao Kuang-yin's yellow robe would not count as treason. Back then, there were people who secretly mocked Zhao Kuang-yin for deceiving himself. But 100 years had passed, and reality proved how far-sighted he was. The world had already forgotten that Chai Rong was not Chai Rong of the Chai family, but Guo Rong of the later Zhou imperial Guo family. His intentions are damnable, his intentions are damnable. Zhao Go was furious. Even he had forgotten this, but Chai Shirong made his descendants remember that his surname was Guo and not Chai. It could be seen that he had never given up on the idea of restoring his country. Emperor, you do not have to worry too much. According to the intelligence we received, Guo Jing should not know his identity, Huang Chang said. Guo Xing died in an accident and then Guo Xiaotian died in an accident. When he died, Guo Jing was still in his mother's womb. Even if there was something in their bloodline that was passed down from generation to generation, it was broken when it came to Guo Jing. Speaking of this, Huang Chang laughed lightly as if he found it very interesting. The descendant of the Chai family is actually helping the descendant of the Zhao family to protect the country. Interesting, very interesting. No, regardless of whether he knows of his birth or not, I cannot leave any hidden dangers. A thread of murderous intent flashed through Zhao Go's eyes. I heard that Guo Jing's martial arts are very high. Is there anyone in the imperial palace who can kill him? Huang Chang shook his head. The people in the palace with the imperial weapons, the commanders of the front guard, and the eunuchs you trust are all top-notch experts in Jianghu. But Guo Jing cultivates both inside and outside, and he grew up in blood and fire. Later, he experienced the tempering of war. No one in the palace is his match. Even you, mister? Zhao Go was shocked. Of course I have no problem with that. Huang Chang's tone was calm but he exuded absolute confidence. But I will not help you kill him. Guo Jing is an upright person and I admire him greatly. At the same time, he has also cultivated my 9-yin manual. He can be considered half a disciple of mine. In addition, he does not know his past. I do not think there is a need to kill him. He doesn't know now, but there's no guarantee that he won't know in the future. Zhao Go was so excited his entire body was shaking. Clearly, he cared a lot about anything that threatened his throne. What's the difference between this and you killing Yu Fei that year? Huang Chang said mockingly. Even though everyone in the world thought that it was the treacherous officials Qin Hui and Ma Chi-chen who killed Yu Fei, there were no outsiders here. Both of them knew what had actually happened. Zhao Gou's expression immediately turned ugly. Killing Yu Fei had always been a knot in his heart. He knew that doing this would leave him with infamy for thousands of years, but he had to do it. Some people guessed that he was worried that his throne would be threatened if he welcomed back Emperor Hui and Emperor Qin. Some guessed that it was because he wanted to negotiate with the Jin Kingdom and the pressure the Jin Kingdom exerted, but only Zhao Gou knew that Zhao Kuangyin had usurped the throne as a military general. Thus, the wariness of military generals was engraved into the bones of every Zhao and Song emperors. In those years, Yu Fei's reputation was like the sun in the sky. If he was allowed to counterattack and restore the Central Plains, his prestige and the people's opinion would reach a terrifying height. It would be even higher than Zhao Kuangyin's prestige in the military. Zhao Gou knew that Yu Fei was a loyal person, but what about his subordinates and friends? When the time came, those people would follow suit and wear the yellow robe. Even if Yu Fei was unwilling, there was nothing he could do. Another very important point was that Yu Fei was too young. Zhao Gou's health had always been weak, and he had no children. If anything happened in the future, no one would be able to control him. Thus, Zhao Gou used the Jin Kingdom's request and used Qin Hui and Ma Qifeng to get rid of this hidden danger in advance. For the sake of our ancestors' kingdom, any hidden danger must be killed in the bud. Zhao Gou said sternly. Since he had killed Yu Fei back then, what was a mere Guojing now? It is for the sake of your kingdom. Guojing must not be touched. Huang Chang snorted coldly. Why? Zhao Gou asked curiously. Huang Chang replied calmly. The Guojing and his wife's righteous deeds of guarding Xiangyang all these years have already spread throughout the world. They are heroes in everyone's hearts. Yu Fei's unjust murder had already caused the people of the world to reach a tipping point. If something similar happens again, the new hatred and old hatred will pile on top of each other. I am afraid that the foundation of the country will be shaken. Hearing him say this, Zhao Gou instantly calmed down. He did not care about anything else, but when it came to the matter of his throne, he was extremely cautious. But we cannot kill him. Are we supposed to just watch him take over the military in Sichuan? Thinking of letting Chai Rong's descendant take over the military, Zhao Gou shuddered. Master also said just now that with Guojing's martial arts, Wu Shi is no match for him. Wu Shi is not completely powerless. His sword techniques have already touched the threshold of rules. Thinking of that kid's miraculous sword techniques, Huang Chang could not help but be a little dazed. With his eyesight, how could he not see that it was the solitary 9 swords? Back then, Dugu Seeker of Defeat swept through the martial arts world while he was in seclusion studying martial arts. By the time he had mastered his martial arts, Dugu Seeker of Defeat had disappeared. The two of them never had a chance to fight. It was truly regrettable. Although he has the power to fight, he will not be able to escape the fate of defeat. Naturally, Zhao Gou was not satisfied with this answer. Why don't Master make a move and heavily injure Guojing beforehand? That way Wu Shi will be able to win. Huang Chang glanced at Zhao Gou indifferently, making him feel as if he had fallen into an ice cellar. A grandmaster has the strength of a grandmaster. Emperor, do not bring this matter up again. With that, his entire person gradually disappeared into the clouds. Zhao Gou's breath stopped, and he could not speak in embarrassment. Just as he did not know what to do, Huang Chang's voice suddenly came from the air. Emperor, why are you only focusing on Guojing? Zhao Gou was startled at first, but he was a smart person and immediately reacted. That's right, although the masters under him could not do anything to Guojing, they would have no problem dealing with Huang Rong. Thank you for your guidance, Master. Zhao Gou did not know whether Huang Chang had left or not. He bowed to the air, but his mind was racing. He had always been good at scheming, and very quickly, he constructed a plan that he was 90% sure would work. After Song Qinshu left the Han Manor, he went straight back to his own manor. Under Chen Yuanyuan's shocked gaze, he carried her back into the house. At first, Chen Yuanyuan was a little reluctant, but she quickly lost to Song Qingshu's dragon's claw. Her breathing quickened, and her entire body weakened. Following a high-pitched moan, the room finally returned to peace. Chen Yuanyuan's face was flushed as she pushed away the man on top of her. She looked at him with some resentment. "I feel like you seem to have treated me as a tool to satisfy your lust. You don't like it?" Playing with the part that would make all men in the world envious, Song Qingshu said with a faint smile, "Don't say anything that goes against your heart. Your body's reaction just now has already sold you out." Chen Yuanyuan's face reddened. "My body does like it, but my heart does not like this kind of feeling. Have you encountered something troubling you?" Song Qingshu could not help but sigh that the other was a woman who understood men very well. "Yes, there is indeed something troubling me. Can you tell me about it?" Chen Yuanyuan picked up his hand and wrapped it around the back of her head. Her entire body shrunk into the crook of his arm. Even though she was older than the other, she really liked this cute and helpless position. Song Qingshu hesitated and did not tell her the details of Han Xingzhou's request. He only summarized, "Right now there is one thing that is not difficult for me, and after I complete it, I will be able to obtain something that I have always dreamed of." At this point, he could not help but think of Huang Rong's beautiful face. After a long silence, he continued to ask, "Do you think I should do it?" "Of course not." Even though Chen Yuanyuan's voice was very gentle, it was filled with determination. "Why do you say that?" Song Qingshu looked at her curiously. "I haven't even told you my concerns." Chen Yuanyuan shook her head and said with a gentle smile, "It's such an easy thing to do, and you can even obtain the thing you yearn for even in your dreams, but you're still hesitating. It's obvious that you'll give up something very important if you do this. Although I don't know what it is, I instinctively feel that once you take action, you won't be able to turn back." Song Qingshu's eyes lit up and he could not help but exclaim, "Everyone says that you are a femme fatale, but in my view, you are clearly someone like Guanyin Zhongsun or Ma Xiuying. In this world, only you, Qingshu, do not think of me as a femme fatale." A trace of sorrow flashed across Chen Yuanyuan's beautiful face. Clearly, she was thinking of the hardships of the first half of her life, but she quickly thought of something and could not help but smile. "Comparing me to Empress Zhongsun or Empress Ma, it seems that Qingshu, your heart is not small." Song Qingshu grinned and squeezed. "If comparing breasts, how can I compare to Jiejie?" Chen Yuanyuan's jade face blushed and she pouted. "Annoying, I do not have such a glib-tongued deity." This pouting could numb a man's bones. Song Qingshu could not hold it back and leapt at her again. "Yuanyuan, tomorrow, those people from the court will come to visit the Fu." Why?" Chapter 1366. Feeling the drastic changes in the man's body, Chen Yuanyuan rolled her eyes at him in annoyance. "You?" Before she could finish, the rest of the words were knocked back by Song Qingshu. Chen Yuanyuan was also aroused by him. Her whole body was soft and tender. Her arms gently hugged the man on top of her, and a pair of watery and charming eyes looked at her gently and charmingly. This kind of soft and watery eyes was like the strongest drug to a man. Song Qingshu roared and pounced on her. "Qingshu, just now it's not good for your body to be like this. It's okay, my body is very strong. That's because you're young now. When you're older, you'll regret it. Don't worry, the martial arts I practice can harmonize the yin and yang qi to nourish my body. Even if I'm old, I can still make Big Sister beg for mercy." Annoying, the next morning, Chen Yuanyuan woke up early. Thinking of the absurdity of last night, she couldn't help but feel uneasy. "I'm really going to die. Why did I accompany him to play around like this?" Looking at the handsome face of the man beside her, Chen Yuanyuan couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. Her life was full of ups and downs, and she had met many men. Originally, she thought that her heart was like still water, and she would never be moved by any man again. However, meeting Song Qinshu gave her a feeling that she had never felt before. She knew very well that it wasn't love. Whether it was age or experience, the difference between the two of them was too big. However, Song Qinshu had a feeling that made her heart beat endlessly, especially in bed. He was really a perfect lover. Perhaps all the men in the past added together couldn't compare to him. I'm really going to die. I was actually conquered by his skills in bed. Chen Yuan covered her head with a pillow, her pretty face blushing incomparably. What are you talking about? Song Qinshu was awakened by her movement and couldn't help but ask with a smile. Chen Yuan's jade face blushed. Nothing. Looking at her messy hair, a head of black hair hanging in front of her chest, a large area of snow-white skin faintly discernible, the contrast between the two colors had a strong visual impact. Sister Yuan, you're so beautiful, Song Qinshu couldn't help but exclaim. Chen Yuan had heard too many praises for her beauty, and most of them were much more elegant than this sentence. But to her, they were far less touching than this sentence. Little brother, you are also very handsome. Song Qinshu was speechless. Don't use such ambiguous terms, okay? Besides, it's not like you haven't experienced it yourself. How am I small? Chen Yuan spat. Little rascal. Song Qinshu could not help but sigh that this was the charm of a mature woman. Right now, Chen Yuan was probably at her most beautiful, but with the passage of time, her beauty would gradually fade. Therefore, he was determined to let Chen Yuan practice the everlasting youth art. Just as he was about to spend some time with her, a maid suddenly came to report, "Young master, a man and a woman have come to visit." Song Qinshu was extremely displeased that his mood was interrupted. Is it a name card? These maids found by Chen Yuliang were not as sensible as the previous ones. Shouldn't they report the identity of the visitors at the beginning? No, the maid replied, but they said they are from the Huashan sect. One surnamed Yu, the other surnamed Lin. Yu Lingshan and Lin Pingji? Song Qinshu sat up from the bed and quickly realized their identity. At the same time, he was curious about why they came to Lin and quickly asked them to wait in the hall. Serve them tea first. I'll come out right away. Song Qinshu ordered the maid and leaned over to kiss Chen Yuan's cheek. Sister Yuan, you should have a good rest. After all, last night was tossed and turned all night. You should sleep when it's almost dawn. Chen Yuan was so shy that she directly threw the pillow to Song Qinshu. Watching him leave with a laugh, she couldn't help touching her hot face. Since she met this bastard, the number of times she blushed seemed to be more than the number of times in the first half of her life combined. After Song Qinshu came to the hall, he saw Yu Lingshan and Lin Pingji whispering something. Seeing him come, they hurriedly stood up and shouted affectionately, "Brother Song." For Lin Pingji, Song Qinshu had taught him skills. For Yu Lingshan, Song Qinshu had saved her family's life, so they were extremely respectful to him in their tone. Song Qinshu couldn't help but praise, "I haven't seen you for a long time. You two are still such a perfect couple." Lin Pingji had delicate features and was a delicate and beautiful young man. It seemed that he was a woman disguised as a man. Yu Lingshan had a graceful figure and a pretty face. When they stood together, there was indeed a feeling that they were a match made in heaven. After the two sides chatted for a while, Song Qinshu couldn't help but ask, "You are far away on Mount Hua. Why did you come all the way to Linnan?" Lin Pingji wanted to say something but stopped. Yu Lingshan helped him to say, "Brother Song, little Linzi has always wanted to avenge the destruction of Fuwei Escort Agency. Originally, he was quite confident in his martial arts. But some time ago, he was repeatedly defeated, which made him realize that his foundation was too shallow. If he wanted to avenge with martial arts, I'm afraid it would be unrealistic in a short time." Song Qinshu frowned and said, "Pingji, I taught you the 5 mountains magical sword. In terms of sword art, you are no less than Yu Songhai. Now the only thing you lack is experience and skill. Of course, because your inner force is not enough, I'm afraid it will take another 7 or 8 years to win. Lin Pingji smiled bitterly and said, but 7 or 8 years is too long. I can't wait to kill my enemy with my own hands. Is 7 or 8 years a long time? Song Qinshu said seriously, you should know that the Qingqing school has been passed down for thousands of years. Yu Songhai is the most outstanding talent in the Qingqing school in the past 100 years. He has been practicing hard for decades, but you can catch up with him in only 7 or 8 years. Isn't that enough? Lin Pingji looked ashamed and said, in fact, I also know this. But the revenge of my parents is absolutely irreconcilable. Every day when I am free, the tragic situation of Fuwei Escort Agency will appear in front of me. I know that if I go on like this, I will probably be possessed by the devil. So I can't wait any longer. Then what are you going to do? Song Qinshu knew what he said was the truth. If he couldn't calm down, even if he practiced for another 7 or 8 years, he might regress more and more. Lin Pingji answered, recently, I heard that the Mongols have returned Sichuan to the Song dynasty. There are many vacancies in Sichuan. Coincidentally, my ancestor has a cousin's descendant who is an official in the imperial court. I want to get an official position through him and take the opportunity to seek revenge on Yu Songhai in Sichuan. Although Yu Songhai did not say it clearly, Song Qinshu could guess a thing or two. After all, Yu Songhai was the leader of a sect and had many disciples under his command. It was too difficult for Lin Pingji to take revenge alone without an absolute advantage in martial arts. Therefore, Song Qinshu planned to use the power of the officials to help him take revenge. After all, Mount Qingqing was located in Sichuan. What's the name of your relative? What position does he hold now? Song Qinshu asked. Nowadays, all the empty positions in Sichuan were being fought for by various forces. If Lin Pingji's relative didn't have enough power, he might not be able to intervene even if he wanted to. His name is Lin Ruhai. He is now the Salt and Iron Envoy of the Imperial Court. Lin Pingji replied. Lin Ruhai? Song Qinshu was surprised. He knew this man. He was one of the 3 envoys under Chen Ziqiang. Although his official position wasn't as high as Zaifu's, he was still famous for his power. The reason why Song Qinshu knew so much was that Lin Ruhai's wife was Jia Min, Jia Shidao's sister. They had a daughter named Lin Daiyu. Therefore, although he was Chen Ziqiang's subordinate, he wasn't one of Han Zizhou's men. Instead, he was one of the core members of Jia Shidao's group. Thinking of this, Song Qinshu couldn't help but ask, since Lin Ruhai is your uncle according to seniority, why did you come to my place? Is he unwilling to help? Lin Pingji blushed and said, not really. We visited his house several times before, but every day his house was crowded with people. We couldn't even get in. Seeing his embarrassment, Song Qinshu couldn't help but comfort him with a smile. Don't think too much. Lin Ruhai didn't mean to hurt you. He is in charge of the salt and iron industry in the world. It's a big job. Not to mention you, even the appeasers and transport envoys are often rejected there. It's normal for them to wait for hours. Song Qinshu couldn't help but think of the officials of the State-Owned Assets Supervision and Administration Commission in his previous life. Although their ranks weren't high, they had great power. Even governors and mayors had to wait in line when they went to his place. Yu Lingshan said crisply, we know it's useless to keep waiting, so we want to ask Brother Song to introduce us. These days, Song Qinshu's affairs were everywhere in Lin and city. Yu Lingshan knew that all the people he visited were at the level of Prime Minister, so she dragged Lin Pingji to find him. Lin Pingji was embarrassed to ask for help, but he couldn't resist Yu Lingshan's coaxing and pestering, so he had to bite the bullet and come. You came at the right time. If nothing unexpected happens, Many officials of the imperial court will come to my house today. I'll introduce you then, Song Qinshu said with a smile. Lin Pingji's face was full of excitement. He clenched his fists tightly, and his face was flushed as if he had put on rouge. Thank you, Brother Song. This is too much trouble. I really don't know how to repay your kindness. Little Lin, don't worry about it. It's just a piece of cake for me. Looking at his face, which was even more charming than many women, Song Qinshu felt a chill run down his spine. A man who looked more like a woman than a woman. If it was in his era, there would be many people who would want to *CK him. Brother Song, why are there so many officials coming to your place today? Yu Lingshan asked curiously. Before Song Qinshu had time to answer, a high-pitched voice suddenly came from not far away. Song Qinshu receives the imperial edict. Soon, a group of imperial bodyguards surrounded a eunuch came to them and said, in accordance with the will of heaven, the emperor decrees. Song Qinshu is conferred the title of Prince of Qi. Chapter 1367. Usually, when receiving an imperial edict, one had to kneel and kowtow. But during the entire process, Song Qinshu stood there like a spear. He had no intention of kneeling. The eunuch reading the edict acted as if he didn't see it. He didn't mention it at all. After reading the edict, he even ran over to Song Qinshu with a fawning smile. After all the eunuchs in the palace were well informed. Back then, Song Qinshu didn't even kowtow to Zhao Go in court. All the officials and generals in court couldn't do anything about it. How could a little eunuch like him not know what to do? Of course, he could go back and complain. After all, according to the rules, if someone was disrespectful when receiving an imperial edict, he had the duty to report it. But he had been in the palace for so long and wasn't stupid. Even if Zhao Go knew, he couldn't do anything about it. Wouldn't he be disliked if he caused trouble for him? The emperor couldn't punish Song Qinshu. What if the emperor couldn't hold back his anger and took it out on him? While Lin Pingji and Song Qinshu were getting closer, Yu Lingshan's mind was still replaying the scene of Song Qinshu turning around and smiling. For a moment she felt a little dizzy. When she saw how he was neither servile nor overbearing, and even a little arrogant, she couldn't help but feel moved. She couldn't help but secretly poke Lin Pingji. Little Lin, did you see that? When can you be as arrogant as Big Brother Song? Lin Pingji's face was full of awkwardness. He smiled and said, Brother Song is a genius. How can I compare to him? Yu Lingshan pouted. Pfft, you have no ambition. Lin Pingji opened his mouth but couldn't say anything. Looking at Song Qinshu standing there like the sun, he couldn't help but feel envious and inferior. Actually, Yu Lingshan didn't have any bad intentions when she said this. Which girl didn't want their sweetheart to be a hero? But reality was cruel. In the end, not many people could become heroes. But many girls would subconsciously compare their sweetheart to other men. On one hand, it would make them disappointed. On the other hand, it would make their sweetheart depressed. Fortunately, Lin Pingji had always admired Song Qinshu. Otherwise, the young couple might have had a big fight because of this. After seeing off the eunuch, Song Qinshu said to Lin Pingji and Yu Lingshan, You can stay here and have a good rest. I'll introduce Lin Rahai to you in the evening. I'm going to arrange the banquet, so I won't entertain you. Please help yourselves. Yu Lingshan's eyes lit up and she said with a smile, Brother Song, you've helped us so much, and we don't know how to repay you. Why don't we help you as well? I used to organize a gathering for all the disciples of the Huashan sect. Song Qinshu wanted to refuse, but after thinking about it, he nodded and agreed. Then I'll have to trouble you. Naturally, he could only smile at her experience in organizing a gathering for the Huashan sect. This kind of banquet for the officials of the court was not something she could handle. However, it was not a bad idea to have the two of them supervise from the side. After all, the entire residence did not have many trusted aides. On the contrary, Yu Lingshan and Lin Pingji's loyalty was more reliable. Song Qingshu then gathered all the servants in the residence. He picked out a few experienced nannies and stewards from the people that Han Xingzhou had sent over and had them handle this matter. Later on, the people that Chen Yuliang had sent over would be their assistant. Lin Pingji and Yu Lingshan would stand to the side and act as supervisors, reporting back to Song Qingshu at any time. After making all the arrangements, Song Qingshu returned to the inner residence. Chen Yuan had long since finished dressing up and was waiting for him. Unable to restrain her curiosity, she looked outside. I heard that the residence seems to be very lively. What happened? Didn't I tell you last night that I was conferred the title of Prince of Qi? Just now the imperial edict arrived. Later, many officials of the court will come to congratulate me. Right now, the residence is preparing for the relevant matters, Song Qingshu explained. Chen Yuan's face reddened. Last night, you said that in that kind of situation. How could I possibly remember? Suddenly, she realized something. Somewhat worried, she said. Just now, you said that many high-ranking officials of the court will come. Among them, there will definitely be people who recognize me. If by any chance I am recognized, you will be in big trouble. Although Chen Yuan had lived in seclusion for the past few years, she had been so famous for her beauty that it was hard to say that no one had seen her. Moreover, among the people who would come tonight, Han Xingzhou, Chen Ziqiang, and the others would definitely recognize her. One was the person who had arranged for the mother and daughter pair to enter the palace, and the other was a senior member of the Chen clan. There is no need to worry. I will help you put on some makeup and change your appearance. When the time comes, you just have to stay in the inner residence and not go out. There should be no problem, Song Qingshu said with a relaxed smile. Disguise. Chen Yuan looked at him in shock. Watch me. Song Qingshu led her to the dressing table and took out the materials that he had prepared. After fiddling with them for around an hour, he said, How about opening your eyes and looking? How did you do it? Looking at the woman in the mirror, Chen Yuan exclaimed. If she had known in advance, she could still vaguely recognize her own reflection. But if she had not known in advance, it would have been impossible to connect the person in the mirror with her. Your man is very capable, Song Qingshu said proudly. Fortunately, he was not disappointed. A beautiful and charming young woman followed at his side. Who else could it be but Huang Rong? As Song Qingshu was sizing up Huang Rong was also sizing him up. She sighed inwardly. When she had first met him in Jingzhou, he had still been an ordinary person. She had not expected that in 2 years, his name would not only shake the world, but that he would also become King Qi. However, she had not expected that such a thing would happen between them. When the two of them looked at each other, the air seemed to exude an indescribable atmosphere. Fortunately, Song Qingshu was sufficiently rational. He promptly withdrew his gaze and changed the topic. You two came at just the right time. Come, let me introduce you. As he spoke, he pulled over the dazed Ling Huchong. This is the current imperial weaponsmith of the imperial palace, Wu Shi and Wu Tianda. These two are the world-renowned husband and wife, Guojing and Huang Rong. Upon hearing the other party's name, both Ling Huchong, Guojing, and Huang Rong's eyes narrowed. After all, both sides already knew about the martial competition and knew that the other party would be a great enemy. Nice to meet you, nice to meet you. As the two sides exchanged greetings, Huang Rong's eyes swiveled. Pursing her lips, she asked with a smile, General Wu, some time ago, I also heard that General displayed your invincible might in Fujian, defeating the experts of the Song Mountain sect. Afterwards, you even saved Lord Han. What was the name of General's sword technique? Ling Huchong had an apologetic expression on his face. I hope that Madame Guo will forgive me. I did not intentionally hide this from you. It is just that I promised the senior who taught me this sword technique that I could not tell anyone else about its origins. There are indeed many seniors and experts in the martial arts world who have such a rule. Huang Rong smiled to show that she understood, but she secretly clenched her teeth. This little fox looks honest on the surface, but he is actually very cunning. I must find a chance to remind Brother Jing so that he won't be taken advantage of later. Song Qingshu watched from the side and secretly laughed. As expected, Huang Rong never let go of any opportunity to inquire about information for Guojing. It was a pity that she had misunderstood Ling Huchong. Ling Huchong did not intentionally hide it. He had promised Feng Qingyang that he would not tell anyone about the sword technique. Ling Huchong's mind was completely focused on Yu Lingshan, who was not far away. After chatting with the couple for a while, he said goodbye and ran to Yu Lingshan. He had even wanted to ignore his disguised identity and talk to his little junior sister, who he had been thinking about day and night. Unexpectedly, Lin Pingji suddenly appeared next to her.